Welcome to the Monday, July 12th meeting of the Mayor and City Council. It's wonderful to see everyone here. I would like to invite the Roswell High Junior Varsity Girls Soccer Team, undefeated, to come forward and lead us in the pledge. We'd all stand and face the flag. Girls, no, you have to come up here. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ladies, before you sit down, I'd like everyone to go to the microphone and introduce themselves, and I'd like to have a spokesperson tell us about your season. So the microphone is the other side of the dais over there. Or Julie, just give them a microphone they can pass around.
Hi, I'm Morgan Najowski.
Hi, I'm Gina Montes.
Hi, I'm Annie Jackson.
Hi, I'm Hannah Larson.
Hi, I'm Shannon Starr.
Hi, I'm Rachel Tenney.
Brittany Phillips.
Annie Walker.
Danielle King.
Anna Asenbrack. Our season was really good this year, and it was all because of our awesome team and our awesome coaches.
You want to introduce them? Are they here tonight?
Yeah, one of them is Coach Harbin.
Let's have a hand for Coach Harbin. Awesome coach.
And Coach Caitlin isn't here right now, but we played really well. We were undefeated. Good job.
Good job. Thank you for coming tonight. Girls, you may have a seat. Next, I would like to introduce Roger Wise, who has some guests here tonight, and with a presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have with me representatives from the University of Phoenix. They've been gracious enough. They have given, in the past, our Child Development Association, their foundation's funds were very well received. We've already put those funds to work in our CDA building. This evening, they're making a presentation to the Masonic Order of Georgia. This money will be used for our child identification program known as Georgia CHIP. This program is presented at no expense to the public. This past weekend we had a CHIPS event on a Saturday and did over 150 children. This information is approved by the FBI, the GBI, endorsed by the National Association of Chiefs of Police, etc., etc. The information you have in front of you, they get a little kit. And when they go home, they got the CD-ROM, etc., etc. in there. If something happens, and God hope it never happens, but if something happens to that child, they present that kit to the authorities, and the minute that CD-ROM hits a computer, it goes nationwide Amber Alert. This year, in the legislature, when the legislature was in session, I'm walking through the hall and was stopped by the director of the GBI, Vernon Keenan. He said, "Wise, when you came to me with this thing 4 years ago, I thought it had potential." He said, "But I want to tell you, there were 5 retrievals this year in the state of Georgia. And without this kit, we don't know what the outcome would have been." So it's presented at no expense. We have a partnership, which you helped form, with the Parks and Recreation in Roswell. We've done a lot of events up here. We're going to do more events up here. So if you would introduce yourselves, and they have a check they want to present to the Georgia Masonic Charities.
I'm Brian Baldwin, Academic Alliance Manager for the State of Georgia, University of Phoenix.
Brewer Garrett, Corporate Relations Director for the University of Phoenix Atlanta campuses.
I might, and Ms. Kay knows, Mr. Baldwin was kind enough to come out, and we have a very special relationship now between the University of Phoenix and the city of Roswell. A pilot-type program they're looking at putting in place that's going to be very beneficial for our public safety personnel.
Gentlemen, thank you for bringing that, Brian and Brewer. We appreciate it. We appreciate the education that you furnished to the citizens of Roswell, and this donation to the Roswell Masons, formed in 1850, 4 years before the city of Roswell received its charter. And I also want to welcome Brandon Beach, North Fulton Chamber of Commerce, and our DOT board member for coming down here and helping encourage these gentlemen to bring that check. Thank you for coming tonight. Let's get the whole council down here for the picture. My council loves a photo op. If you'll wait for us.
And would you please come join us?
If it was just me, I would get around. Thank you. Oh, Roger got a recognition.
One moment. Folks, somebody, Major, would you join us up here? I had a friend call me in my neighborhood. Unfortunately, his wife was diagnosed with very serious cancer. He lives in a very challenging home, right under the garage, etc. He said, Roger, I don't know what I'm going to do. I've got to get back over for my chemo, got to get her home, got to get her in and out of the house. I said, I would suggest you call our fire department. Dial 911 and tell them you need some help. He came back to me 2 days later with tears in his eyes. And he said, Roger, he started telling me what happened. He said, what should I do? I want to write a letter. I said, you write a letter. And I'll have this evening an opportunity to present this in front of our mayor and our city council and our chief is here. Very Wood City Council members, 38 Hill, and City Council members, Hill Street, Boston, Georgia. Dear Mayor Wood and council members, on behalf of my wife Cindy, cancer patient, I want to call attention to the fire chief and station number 7, firefighters, outstanding public service. Recently, Cindy was diagnosed with abdominal cancer. And over the past few weeks, has been nearly immobilized. On 2 occasions, firefighters Johnny Martin, Bert Schroeder, and Mike Barnes and Boyd Franklin put her in a stair chair and carried her in and out of our house. I brought her home from the hospital and the doctor's visit. I cannot fully express my gratitude for the way these gentlemen turned a stressful situation into a smooth, safe day. Cindy always asked me to give the firefighter's name so she could write to you herself. But unfortunately today, he has to write for her. We have lived in Bushy Bend subdivision in Roswell for 26 years. Excuse me, I'm going there. We've always been proud to be a resident of one of the mayor's most notable places. We've always respected the professionalism of all public safety officers, but after our recent experience, we love it. Congratulations to the city of Roswell for its ability to attract such quality people to serve our citizens. Cindy hopes for one day to be well enough to stand at a council meeting and publicly thank these public servants. Sincerely, Anthony Shaw.
Let's have a hand for the police. I apologize, I skipped over one thing. I have a letter here from Sonny Perdue, Governor of the State of Georgia, written to the co-captains of the Roswell Junior High varsity team and all the members, and I have a copy for everyone. And it says, "Congratulations to you and your team on having an undefeated season. This is something special. I'm pleased to join Mayor Wood, your school, family, and friends in thanking you for your hard work, your dedication, and determination. You make us proud," and he's true, you make all of Roswell proud. To the coaches, McDonald and Harbin, we thank you for being such great role models for our future leaders. You can be proud of your young ladies and know that they represent you and your school well. Congratulations again, Roswell High. And one more hand for the Roswell High girls. And girls, feel free to follow Roger Wise out the door if you don't want to stick around for the rest of this council meeting. You're welcome. Thank you for coming tonight. At this time, I'll call upon, we've got a consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Move to approve.
Motion by Councilmember Becky Wynn to approve the consent agenda. Do we have a second? Second by Councilmember Diamond. Does anyone in the audience have any questions regarding the consent agenda? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously. At this time, I'll call upon Councilman Jerry Orleans.
Thank you. First item on our agenda tonight is approval of a budget amendment 1585-07-12-10 to decrease the 2011 general fund budget by $113,000. The budget amendment will decrease the fiscal year 2011 general fund budget by $113,000 from $63,092,471 to $62,979,471. And this will consist of police patrol gasoline will be reduced $30,000, fire suppression gasoline will be reduced $10,000, parks gasoline will be reduced $13,000, park sanitation services will be reduced by $20,000, and building operations sanitation services will be reduced by $40,000. Recently, we've had some good news. We got our most recent month's sales tax in for the city, and that was up quite a bit. It looks like our budget for 2010 last year for sales tax is going to be about $900,000 above what we had budgeted. And in total, although we don't have final year-end figures yet, we think we're going to have a surplus from the 2010 budget of from $1.5 to $2 million. So basically, based on that recent information and the extra money that's in the last year budget, we took a closer look at some of our individual line items and how they're finishing the year up. So after taking a closer look and showing a savings from that 2010 budget and projecting it into our 2011 budget, that's where these reductions came from, so that we feel comfortable in reducing these line items in our 2011 budget. So based on these changes, I'd like to move for approval of the budget amendment for year 2011.
We have a motion by Councilman Orleans to reduce the budget by $113,000. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Price. Mrs. Love, have you done analysis of these items that are being reduced?
Yes, sir. We have. Staff have taken a look at the items for this budget amendment. Specifically in the area of gasoline, we took a look at previous years from 2008, 2009, 2010, and looked at our projection for 2011. And that's what you're seeing on the screen there. We have some charts in a moment to show you. Specifically in patrol, fire suppression, and parks and rec, we took a look at the budget compared to actual expenditures in all the three preceding years. This budget reduction of $30,000, $10,000, and $13,000 respectively still places those divisions in a position to have adequate funding based upon prior history of miles driven and gasoline consumed based on average gallon prices throughout the year. As you know, over the past couple of years, gasoline has spiked up and down quite a bit, so we've made provisions for that. Mr. Lee, if you could show the bar graph for us. The first one, push it up just a little bit. This depicts the table that you saw previously. The blue graph line shows the actual expenditures, which is what we really took a look at. The budget number is in red there. And Keith, if you can just go over those quickly to show where that reduction is for 2011.
Yes, ma'am. In this particular case, for FY10, we are estimating expenditures of $276,000. After this reduction, we will have $312,000 remaining in the FY11 budget for this gasoline.
So we look at our historic numbers. Even though we have lowered the estimate for these fuel costs in these various departments, it's still more than we spent last year and more than we expected, and within line with what we expect to spend this year.
Yes, sir.
So we found we may have overestimated those charges, and this is bringing it more in line with a reasonable conservative estimate.
Yes, sir.
Now, I want to ask you about our budget principles. The budget principles that I asked this council to follow were set forth, I believe, in the first line: a balanced budget, revenues are greater than operating expenditures or maintenance capital. With this reduction of $113,000, will the budget as passed by this council, if this amendment passes, meet this first standard?
Yes, sir.
So it will be a balanced budget.
Yes, sir.
Does the council have any questions for Keith? Thank you. We have a motion and a second. I will first want to know if there's anyone in the audience who has any questions or comments. Yes, sir. Come forward, please.
Lee Fleck, Martin's Landing. Mayor, I have a few questions of you. My first question is, the Roswell Neighbor, the city's legal instrument, quoted you as stating that at the current rate, council will have spent all the available reserves above policy by 2012. Was that a correct statement?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and this graph represents that, correct?
Yes, sir.
So that from 2008, 2009, we're going to go from $13 million. We're going to use up half our excess reserves in 1 year. Is that correct?
Keith, would that be correct? Keith's my budget man. I turn to him for all these specific questions.
Can you focus this in so that people can see it?
Yes, sir. Based on the approved budget, the current year estimated fund balance, the use of reserves is approximately half of that, of the
Thank you.
reserves above policy.
Thank you. Mayor, also in the legal instrument, it was noted that an email was sent by you to the local media and advised them, quote, including the cost to maintain our roads, the deficit for the fiscal year 2011 will exceed $1.9 million. Is that a correct statement?
I would not use the term deficit because that has a legal meaning, but to the extent that projected expenses exceeded projected revenues on those items you talked about, that would be a correct statement.
I'm just quoting what was in the paper that you stated it was a deficit. Now, it's beyond my wildest imagination that you came up with $113,000 in gasoline savings and all of a sudden $1.5 million in deficit disappears. Please explain that to me. I'm flabbergasted.
I was trying to meet the principles in that budget. If you look at the road maintenance, that can be put into the category of capital maintenance, and I was looking at the regular maintenance and the operating budget. So the numbers haven't changed, but the basic principle I was trying to enforce was that if we looked at our revenues, I wanted to make sure our revenues were greater than operating expenditures and your basic maintenance capital, and that was the principle which I was focusing on.
Well, I still have I'm just flabbergasted that this council is being so unprudent to spend this large amount of reserves. Okay, and I dare say anybody in this room who thinks that the city of Roswell can function independent financially from the state of Georgia or this country, all I can say to them is there must be a lot of villages missing their village idiots. Okay? I have tried constantly to give you all information. So I'm going to diverge for just a few seconds here before I have a couple other questions. Because I think this is very obvious that when we're using this kind of reserves in such a short period of time, we are not protecting ourselves from the inevitable, which is coming down the tubes. What I'm going to put up here for everybody to see, this is the Georgia state budget. This is the shortfalls in 2010 alone. The cumulative shortfalls by month, which ended up by May, and their budget just ended June 30th, were $1.8 billion. Over the last 3 years, I wish that could be focused better, this is what's happened in the state of Georgia. Year over year with revenue collections. Guess you had a nice windfall. Glad to hear that. But this is the picture as has existed for the last 3 years. And let me remind you that the economic trials that we've been on, we're into our 4th year now. They began in 2007. Okay? What we have here is, this is the reduction in revenues in 2008, 2009, and 2010, and they're cumulative. What I'm saying is the state has lost over 21% of their revenues over the last 3 years. Let me bore you with one final thing so that you have a real picture of where the budget for this state is. This is since 2003. And I know it's difficult to make out, but the bottom line is what that statement says is that the collections for fiscal year 2010 are actually tracking with 2005. I think that should give you grave concern about the rate that you are burning off reserves. You're going to make me look clairvoyant, okay? I am just absolutely flabbergasted that you've chosen that route this year because, frankly, the public, as you stated, Mayor, in your own articles and statements, is that the taxpayers of this city will be faced with a tax increase or a major cut in services by fiscal year 2013. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fleck. Does anyone else wish to be heard on this amendment to the budget? Any further discussion by council? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. That's unanimous.
Next item on the agenda is approval for the mayor and/or city administrator to execute an amended contract with North Georgia Community Housing Development Corporation for the Neighborhood Stabilization Program, the commonly called as the NSP 1 grant. And I think this is a follow-up to a previous meeting that we had on this. And Mr. Fisher, you're going to explain where we're at now.
It is. Thank you, Councilman Orleans. In fact, it is a follow-up.
Just to clarify, North Georgia Community Housing Development is better known as Habitat for North Fulton.
Correct. Affiliate of Habitat for Humanity. In the last council meeting, if you remember, it was agreed that we would work with both North Georgia Community Housing Development Corporation and Find a Way Homes in a 50-50 partnership for the Neighborhood Stabilization Grant. The total grant was $678,042. And you had asked that we come back and kind of make some updates to you and let you know how the progress is going, because there was some incredibly tight deadlines to be able to obligate and encumber these funds. We had a meeting with both groups to start the program off, and Find a Way Home, after the first meeting, ended up presenting us with a letter to withdraw from participation in the program. During that time, they had received 2 additional grants to expand and improve some existing programs that they already have that have to do with education, also with the affordable rental housing program that they're currently partaking in. They had mentioned the expansion of these programs would require a significant amount of dedication of both time and resources for their group, and then administratively and financially, I think ultimately Find a Way Homes had to make the decision of what would best fit their programs and their mission and their vision, so they did respectfully withdraw from the program. We're still working with North Georgia Community Housing Development Corporation. Mr. Russ Hayes, who is the CEO for Habitat for Humanity, the North Central Georgia area, is here with us tonight. So if it comes to where you would have any questions about their programs, he would be glad to speak to you about those. We've met weekly since the last council meeting that we had. Currently, North Georgia Community Housing Development Corporation has offers out on 3 properties already. So we're very excited about that. They've been out searching homes that would fit, properties that would fit in the qualifications of the grant, and they have been able to identify 3. Right now, as it stands, they've used up the majority of the 50% of their funds. And I know that it was asked in the last meeting that based on the progress and the status of the grant that we could possibly change those amounts around. And as it stands right now, we have the one group that seems to be doing a pretty decent job with the program. So tonight I'm here to ask you for a contract amendment so that we can do the other 50% of the grant to North Georgia Community Housing Development Corporation, which is an affiliate of Habitat for Humanity, where they can go out as they identify other properties. They can go ahead and make their offer also on that. With the approval tonight of making the amendment to the contract, we would be able to check off the first deadline, which would be that we encumber the total amount of the grant funds before the middle of August. So we are on track to do that if we have that contract amendment tonight. So that would be my request to you.
So this amendment tonight is to move over that balance, the other 50% of the $678,042.
Correct.
To Habitat.
No
Correct.
change in the budget, just change in their contract.
Right.
We have a motion.
Move for approval of the amendment.
Motion by Councilman Orleans to move. Second by Councilman Diamond. Does anyone in the audience have any questions or comments? Any further discussion by Councilman Price?
I'm just curious if there's any representative of Habitat Humanity here this evening.
Yes, ma'am, there is. Russ Hayes is here. He's the CEO for the North Central Georgia area. Russ is standing right here.
Ms. Price, do you have any questions?
Just wondered if he had anything to comment.
For the record, it's Russell Hayes. Our address is 814 Mimosa Boulevard, Building C. I'm proud to say that we're housed in the basement at Roswell United Methodist Church. Have been for 15 years now. This is our anniversary. My comments are to thank the council for the original grant award, and particularly to thank the council in advance, if this motion is approved, for the faith in us to be able to put forth the additional effort that we'll need to put the we think now that we can probably do 6 houses. We have a total of $315,000 committed. We have one contract, I think Michael said, that we've actually had approved. It's awaiting signature by Fannie Mae. We have 2 other contracts on Fannie Mae homes, bank-owned foreclosures, that have been submitted, and we expect approval shortly. We have a list of at least 4 houses that we're actively interested in. My expectation actually is the first house will close before the August 20 deadline. We're currently scheduled to close out on August 10th. And I think we're going to tell the seller that we can move that up. So my thanks to the Roswell City Council for your faith in us previously. This is a milestone year for Habitat North Central Georgia. We're not only celebrating our 15th anniversary as a Habitat affiliate, but we're also celebrating in October the construction of our 200th home, serving the three counties that we serve. I'd also like to say thanks to the staff. They've truly been remarkable under incredible time constraints and have acted with vigor, professionalism, and they've truly been timely and responsive. We don't always find that in dealing with government entities. Not only Mr. Fisher, but Danny Blitch, Jen Erdman, and Rich Browning have all been just excellent to work with. So I thank you, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have about our activities.
Councilmember Price.
Do you anticipate any difficulty with the time frame remaining to fulfill the requirements?
I thought we would when we undertook the original application, and when the city staff originally recommended that we be the sole beneficiary of this award, and I thought it would be difficult. But probably the hardest thing for us right now is finding homes immediately in the target areas. The Department of Housing and Urban Development has said that we have to find homes in areas with a foreclosure rate, complicated formula, I won't pretend to explain it, of 8. That kind of limits us. The staff is seeking permission to go into 2 more areas, but that's probably been the largest constraint. We have 2 other homes that are in the targeted areas. They are 2-bedroom homes, and we're trying to find 3-bedroom homes if we can, just to serve more citizens. But I think, to answer your basic question, I think that we'll have all the houses under contract in the next 3 weeks.
Good, thank you.
Any other questions? Councilmember Owens.
Russ, I just want to thank you and Habitat for all you do for us and what you've done in the past for the city of Roswell. And we appreciate that this is bringing you back in to get some homes going in the city of Roswell again. Because I know
we appreciate that opportunity.
While, so. Thank you.
We very much appreciate that opportunity. Land's expensive in Roswell, but with grants we're able to do that. And we'll do a good job of advertising homeowner application meeting, and hopefully we can even see some city employees apply. Thank you.
Any further discussion?
Next item is approval for the mayor and/or city administrator to sign a contract with Wireless Town to provide free wireless internet access to select City of Roswell facilities. Again, this was a process we went through and put out some bids, and we've got a company that's going to try to work in the City of Roswell, and Mr. Fisher is going to explain what, where, and how.
Thank you, Councilman Orleans. This is the request of his proposal for RFP 10161C, and it was issued to try to find a company to give us a proposal on doing an initial 5 locations on city facilities to where they could provide internet access to our citizens. It's a request that was brought in some time back, particularly in some of the park areas where citizens have to come in, they have their children there, and they don't have time to be able to go and leave and come back, but yet they sit there and they can't do other things than surfing the web and the things that we do today online. So they asked us to look into that through Councilman Iglehart, and I know Joe Glover has worked particularly hard on these also, so thank you to them. And Councilman Orleans has been taking the lead on this as well through the administration department. Wireless Town was the one that responded to us. They are a local company, and they provide this access to several local businesses right now. Patrick Dale is here. Patrick is our IT division manager, as you all well know Patrick, and he's actually been out and got online at one of the facilities and was very impressed with the operation of it. So we're looking forward to getting this set up, and the recommendation today would be for you guys to approve Wireless Town so that we can get started and have some wireless access to some of our citizens at locations throughout our city.
Michael, for the record, would you outline the areas that will be available?
Yes, sir. The first place is here at the City Hall Rotunda, so when they're coming in and waiting on things here, they'll be able to access there. The Physical Activity Center at Roswell Area Park, the Community Activity Building at Roswell Area Park, East Roswell Recreation Center, and Hembry Park Recreation Center.
Councilmember Dippolito.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Fisher, the cost to the residents to use this is zero?
Correct. There's zero cost. The creativity in the business plan of Wireless Town is to work it, the business side from their end. They're providing the service to us at no cost, and they recoup through advertising and other things that they do.
Okay, now, I notice it's free for an unsecured connection. They have a secure option. Is that correct?
Patrick, do you know how they secure that?
Yes, they actually have a secure option as well. Wait until you get to the mic. Wait till you get to the mic.
For a nominal fee, they provide security because basically on an open Wi-Fi access point, a hacker could, depending on the firewall software you have on your laptop, a hacker could hack into your laptop. But they do provide what's called an IPsec tunnel, which is a type of security mechanism that rides on their network. And they have a special what's called virtual LAN that you would connect to other than the one that the free one would be, and that would provide robust high-end security.
So, but for somebody who's just going in, they just want the free service, they monitor that as well, right? So it's
they do monitor
secure.
it, yes. Absolutely, yes.
So it would be relatively secure.
It would be no different than going to all these coffee shops or Starbucks.
Right.
Those aren't secure. Those are wide open as well.
Okay, thank you.
That's why I had Patrick come and answer that question.
Patrick's looking sharp. Patrick's looking sharp tonight too. You know, suit, tie, looking good.
Yes. Can you remind me of how we ended up with the advertising, that we have some discretion over certain ads that we might not be comfortable having on our city service?
We do have. Go ahead. We do have discretion over the ads. We've laid out what is acceptable, what is not acceptable, what is in the RFP. We also have the ability to, if he wants to question some of the stuff, we have council has first right of refusal on that content.
Any other questions, Council? Councilmember Price.
What is the length of the contract?
We have it right now for a one-year initial term, but it can be renewable for up to 3, I think is what we have in the contract, because he will be putting some equipment out there, or whoever responded to it, in this case Wireless Town. So we had to make some benefit to him that he could start his process and try to keep it going.
And also, will we be able to monitor the usage of it? Like how?
Absolutely. We'll be getting reports from him periodically on the numbers that go in there.
Any other questions, Council? Do we have a motion?
Move for approval of going forward with the contract.
Motion by Councilmember Owens. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Eichelhart. Does anyone in the audience have any questions or comments? Any further discussion by council? All in favor of the motion, raise your hands. Passes unanimously. This time we'll hear from Councilmember
Excuse me, can you turn on your mic?
I apologize. This time we'll hear from Councilmember Kent Eichelhart, liaison to Recreation and Parks Department.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The next item is the approval of an ordinance to ban smoking within the City of Roswell parks. And just a quick history, the Recreation and Parks Department, one of their primary goals is to promote a healthy lifestyle. And the Recreation Commission brought forward this request back last year. At that time, the council did not want to put an entire ban on. We passed an ordinance to provide for designated smoking areas. In looking at that through staff and the commission, it just became too difficult to actually implement that. And so we came back and asked again for the total ban. So that's where we are tonight, and I'll save the things for or against till later. But that is what is being proposed, is for a total ban within the parks property of smoking and also any other tobacco products. I don't know if Mr. Glover would like to say anything else. I was trying to save him from all that aspect. I'm sure there'll be questions, but that's where we stand on that.
We have a motion for a total ban by Councilmember Eichelhart. We need this is second reading, so we'll need a
Microphone, please.
Thank you. This is an ordinance to ban smoking within the City of Roswell parks. Now, therefore, the Mayor and Council of the City of Roswell, pursuant to their authority, do hereby adopt the following ordinance. Section 14.2.4K of the City of Roswell Code of Ordinances is hereby amended by deleting in its entirety and substituting the following section in its place. Subsection K, smoking. It shall be unlawful for any person to smoke or use any other tobacco product within any City of Roswell park. They have approved this to be the second reading.
Do we have a motion?
Move to approve the ordinance.
Motion by Councilman Eichelhardt. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Diamond. I've got a couple of questions. Mr. Glover, how many parks are we talking about?
About 22.
Now, some of these parks are. Let me ask you an example. If the Triangle Park on Canton Street, what are the limits of that park?
It's actually to the sidewalk on the surrounding area from curb to curb.
So if you're walking down the sidewalk smoking a cigarette on Canton Street, you could be cited to be in violation of this.
If you're on the park side of that property, yes, sir.
Now, how would a visitor to Roswell know that he wasn't supposed to be smoking on the sidewalk on a pretty day outside?
We would have to install signage in those locations.
So why would you have to? Under this ordinance, the way it's read.
Well, you wouldn't have to, but if you wanted to give proper notice that there's an area that you cannot smoke, then we've got to be able to get that information to those people.
Are you saying that's what we should do, or do you believe that's a legal requirement?
It's not a legal requirement, but that would be something. If we thought we were going to be citing people and writing tickets on a regular basis, I think we would feel obligated to put some kind of signage there.
There'd be no legal obligation?
No, sir.
So this council could cite folks for walking down the sidewalk, whether it was that location or there are many other parks that would be equivalent of that?
Not necessarily in the sidewalk scenario, but yes, there's other sidewalks in parks. Of course, it would be the same.
If you're walking down Azalea Street, Azalea Drive along the river.
Yes, sir, that would be considered a park.
You'd be in the park, and you wouldn't know if you were a Fulton County resident and it was a pretty day and you're walking down the sidewalk smoking a cigarette, you could be cited. And Mr. Davidson, what's the fine for smoking on the sidewalk in Roswell if it happens to be within a park?
It could be up to $1,000 fine.
I would suggest to the council that if you're going to pass this ordinance, that you need to make it only in locations where it's posted, because I think you're setting yourself up for a real problem simply to say folks walking down the sidewalk in Roswell are going to be cited in a $1,000 fine for smoking when they're not from out of town. To pass this ordinance without also requiring that it be posted, it may be unenforceable in every location. That challenge might be made. And on the other hand, if that weren't the case, I think it would be very unfair. So I hope the council will consider that. Other questions for Mr. Glover? Councilmember Eichelhardt.
Relative to that, I'm assuming in that same location is alcohol prohibited, or is it not?
Alcohol would be prohibited, you're right.
Is there signage there now for that?
There are in some of the parks. I don't know.
In that particular Triangle Park?
No, sir.
And do we generally regularly write people citations and charge them $1,000 fines?
No, sir.
And I think that's the point here, is that as with all these, the first step is always to ask them not to do that, to leave if necessary, and the actual citation and a fine is highly unlikely, and I don't know that it's ever really come through even on the alcohol side or other things. So to jump from, if you walk down the street to say you're going to get a $1,000 fine is a bit unreasonable.
It would be, I think, our intent for the last resort that we would try to arrest anybody or make sure anybody was fined.
So is our intent not to enforce this ordinance?
No, sir.
So it's our intent not to cite folks under this ordinance?
It's our intent to inform people that there's an ordinance that would prohibit the smoking or drinking or whatever the case is, and hopefully they would abide by it and go on the merry way. But if they did not and wanted to continue to engage in those activities, then I think our park police and Roswell police would have no other option.
So why don't we put in the ordinance that that if that's our intent, why don't we say we're just going to warn them the first time? Why do we need to put in the ordinance that we can cite them the first time? You don't have an answer.
I can't answer that.
Other questions or comments from Mr. Glover? Thank you, Mr. Glover. Now we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion by council before we open it up for public comment? Councilmember DePolito.
I was wondering if council could answer your question about do we have this so that there's a warning listed in the ordinance?
If that was that a question?
Well, it was your question. I just was asking our city attorney if he could respond to that because nobody responded to your question.
Mr. Davidson may certainly respond to that question.
We don't have it in the ordinance for other violations where we issue warnings. It's not necessary. You can put it in if you would like, but we leave almost all of our ordinance violations to officers' discretion anyway. Speeding tickets are the same. Other drinking in the park, they would usually make somebody pour out their drinks before they gave them a citation. So I don't know if it's a enforcement issue.
All right, this time we'll open it up for public comment. Does anyone in the audience wish to comment on this or have any questions? Seeing no, yes, sir, come forward.
I'm David Mastro. I do not smoke, but just wanted to think if I were a tourist coming to the town and I got cited for $1,000 for smoking, I probably wouldn't come back to this town. If the word got out around Atlanta, people could go to Alpharetta, other places, and think about what it might do to the local businesses in the area. People stop coming to the area because they're afraid they would get cited for smoking. That's just my thought.
Thank you, sir. Does anyone else wish to comment? Yes, sir. Come forward, please. If you give us your name and address before you address the council, we'd appreciate it.
My name is Bill Largent. I live on Willow Bend Road, and I find myself in the uncomfortable situation of defending cigarette smokers. I smoked for a short time in my teens and quit. It's been 20-some-odd years. I maybe smoke 4 to 5 cigars a year, depending on the special occasion. But with that being said, and I thought about being inside the parks, in a hypothetical situation, what about the parent who's there with their kids at a practice for several hours at a time? They need to be there to supervise their children. If they step away a polite distance away from the other people to smoke a cigarette, right now, if this ordinance passes, you're going to force them to get in their car, leave their children unsupervised, drive off of park property to smoke a cigarette, and then come back. Again, I find myself in an uncomfortable situation of defending cigarette smoking, but that simply doesn't seem reasonable. And I'm curious how something like that would be addressed by the ordinance. You talked about this being an aspect of supporting healthy living, and I encourage that. But here you have a parent who's there supervising their child, not necessarily taking advantage of the parks and an aspect of the healthy living. I think this ordinance is going to be much more far-reaching than what you envision, and I'm curious if you considered those consequences. I'm sorry, Mr. Engelhardt, since you brought the ordinance forward.
Actually, that has been part of the discussion, and that was one of the reasons I guess that's probably the main reason as to why not to do that, or to pass a ban. And yes, that's true, and that is a consideration. I guess the greater question is for all the other folks who are around there, and that is in one specific situation. But if if they move into the parking lot, that was one of the suggestions as where perhaps people could smoke. But that's also likely we're going to have all the kids coming from the events as they get into their cars, and so the actual impact on those people is greater by allowing it. Yes, you're right. If that is, they ultimately have to smoke, can't do anything other in that time period, that would be the option. As is now passed, though, we have now put forward a designated area which would essentially require the same thing. It may or may not be off the property, but it may be as far away as where they'd be going off the property would be. So we have passed that as it is. And honestly, I just don't see that as the overriding concern on it.
So the aspect of a parent having to leave their children unsupervised to take part in a legal activity is not an issue?
Well, I don't see parents leaving their children unattended to go smoke for 5 minutes, and if they're part of an activity of football, whatever, soccer, yes, it is possible they would leave, but they would be supervised. But I don't see that where that would actually happen. That, okay, you guys stay here, play on the swings, I'll be back. I just don't see that happening.
As somebody who's coached in the Roswell Rec League, some of our coaches, some of our sessions and our practice sessions may last an hour and a half. And again, I find myself in a difficult situation of defending cigarette smoking, which I'm against, but I'm more against a focused law that is addressing somebody who's taking part in a legal activity that has other consequences outside of just that activity.
And during that time that you're coaching, does every parent stay there while their child is under your supervision of a coach, as a coach? Is every parent there for every child?
I think what's important is that every parent has the option to stay there if they like. In this case, if they want to go off-site to partake in a legal activity, they would not be able to. So they have that option to stay or not. Whether they stay or not, whether they're there while we're coaching, I don't think is an issue. What you're doing is you're taking away their option to stay there.
And if they wanted to have a drink while they're sitting there, an alcoholic drink, they couldn't do that either.
Sir, we're not talking about drinking, and that's not the aspect of this.
It is the same thing. It's prohibited.
No,
What's
well,
the
sir,
difference?
that's not covered in this ordinance, and that's an important concern.
It's already banned by another ordinance, so it's already in place, so it's the same thing.
Again, sir, I'm not addressing drinking, and that's not anything that I brought up. What this ordinance is addressing is cigarette smoking or use of tobacco.
But it's the same issue.
I'm sorry?
It's the same issue in that sense of what is prohibited. And whether or not a parent could take part in that.
No, sir, because I imagine if you go back to and check the ordinance, the word use of alcohol is not mentioned in this ordinance, is it?
No, I agree. That's not my point. That it's
okay,
already banned another way.
Well, then it's not the same issue.
Gentlemen, I think you can agree on the point of alcohol.
And again, Mr. Mayor, I don't see where alcohol versus smoking is an issue in this ordinance. And again, I find myself in a difficult situation of supporting cigarette smoking. But in the same sense, I think the council is taking a step and focusing a law on a legal activity that focuses certain individuals. I've seen this council take that step before, and I'm very uncomfortable with it. So if this is just one example of parents leaving their children to go and partake in a legal activity, and I'm curious, you said that was addressed in the original consideration for the bill, and you found it not to be important. Is that correct?
I didn't say it wasn't important, but I would say that the original thing passed was the designated area, which essentially results in the same thing. They would not be in that exact area with the child. But I still don't see when you have supervision of coaches how that's leaving them unsupervised. But we can. I agree.
But sir, do you see that it's the choice?
But we do disagree.
Do you see that it's the choice that the parent has to stay there versus the choice of going off-site to smoke a cigarette? You're removing that choice from the parent.
I think both of you have made your point, and I think if you're going to try to get each one to agree with each other, we will be here all night.
Yes, sir.
So if there are other points to make, we'll hear those. But I think we've heard enough discussion, and I think everyone here understands the perspectives of each speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Who else would like to speak? I see no. Yes, sir. Come forward, please. If you want to speak, you need to move forward to the front. We're not going to force you to come up here and speak, but you have that opportunity, so don't be bashful if you want to speak.
The last time we discussed this issue, I also came before the council. I have a question, Mr. Davidson. In addition to, I think, the last time we discussed this, in addition to up to $1,000 fine, there was also potential jail time. Is that correct?
At the discretion of the judge, yes.
Mr. Toddy, could you identify yourself and your residence address?
I'm Jim Toddy. I live at 10850 Stroop Road, Roswell, Georgia.
Do you have any other questions or comments?
I do have some more comments. So I think about this, and to me, it's an abridgment of a removal of some of our freedoms in this country that people have fought and died for. And I am not for having no limits on smoking. I believe that if somebody is smoking and their smoke affects somebody else, they should be asked to remove themselves to another area where they aren't affecting anybody else, or they can put out their cigarette. Except in the one area, if they are smoking before nobody's around them and somebody moves into their space, I think the smoker should have the ability to continue their smoke. But if I'm standing out in back of Arts Center West, there's a huge field and probably multiple acres. And if they're out there at 7 a.m. watching the sunrise and there's nobody else in that field with them and they want to have a smoke, of course there won't be any officers around at that time, I'm sure, but if there were, why should they not be allowed to smoke a cigarette or a pipe or a cigar at 7 o'clock in the morning with nobody around them? It's beyond me why you would want to limit that. You know, smokers are taxpayers too, and we used to be the Star Spangled Banner says we are the home of the brave and the land of the free, and I think that each time government takes away a little bit more freedom, that threatens other freedoms that we have.
Thank you, sir. Does anyone else wish to speak? Yes, sir. Come forward, please.
My name is Ed Sent. I live at 1345 Parkmont Drive. I get the point of what the ordinance is tonight, and I really think the city should pass it. I understand the fear that some people think the government's going to make it completely illegal to smoke. I don't think that's going to happen, though it's not mentioned in the U.S. Constitution. I'm pretty confident that people are going to see it as a life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness issue, and people in the courts are always going to let folks puff away in their own personal space. The problem is that some space is common space, and, well, it belongs to all of us. So how do you partition this common space so wafts of cigarette smoke won't drift into the areas where little lungs and eyes are? I don't understand. Is there places right now on the park that they have to go to smoke, or that didn't pass? As far
Mr. Davis might have to help me. Technically, we passed the designated area ordinance, but part of that was to have the Recreation Commission create those. That process is ongoing, and it hasn't actually been set up. So as of this moment, anybody can smoke anywhere.
Okay. There's no signage that says this is a designated area.
But if this were not to pass, that still stays in effect. And when it's supposed to come back to the council, if we approve that, then there would be those designated areas that would be signage and that kind of thing.
Okay, so there could be a total ban, or it could be that way where there's designated. We know there's going to be designated areas, but this is for a total ban, correct?
Correct.
Okay. The Surgeon General, they put notices out on packs of cigarettes in the late 60s and the 70s, and that was government taking action on behalf of its citizens. Those warnings motivated me to convince my folks to stop smoking. I think any action that a parent, a teacher, a coach, a mentor, a governmental body can take to help the public understand that smoking is something that is dangerous and should be avoided at all costs is worthwhile to do. And the tobacco industry, they're kind of dragging and kicking as far as trying to tell the public that smoking is a bad thing. The city of Roswell to put it out there to say, hey, our parks and recreation, it's a no smoking zone. Come here, enjoy your time here. Be healthy, be happy. You can smoke in your own personal space. The parent that has to leave to go smoke a cigarette while their kid's there, you better believe that after they get done, they'll probably roll up the windows in the car and drive home with their kid and smoke in the car with the kid and smoke at home as well. We can't control that. You don't have to have a license to be a parent, and we're not trying to control that, but it is kind of sad. So I do want to say that there was a landmark study in China about the effects of cigarette smoking on their population. 2/3 of the population think that smoking does little or no harm. 3/4 of all Chinese men are smokers, and about 2,000 people a day are dying of smoking. So it's hard to imagine that the state of the health of American citizens today, if our government failed to act 40 years ago, where would we be? So, I think the Chinese government wishes they had acted sooner to slow their epidemic. And I think it makes a real strong thing, a real strong statement for the city of Roswell to say that we don't allow smoking in the parks. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Does anyone else wish to speak? Yes, sir. Come forward.
Good evening, Mayor Wood, members of the council. My name is Tony Kazukali, 910 Thorrington Place, Roswell. I didn't come here to speak to the issue of smoking in a public park. I came here to listen and observe to any exchange there might be about the budget. So I'm somewhat taken aback by this particular subject. I guess I'm turning out to be somewhat somnambulant in the city of Roswell, a citizen sleepwalker, I guess, so I'm caught unprepared. But I just took some quick notes just listening to some of the residents that preceded me. And I'm just curious because I'm playing catch-up real quick. So I wonder if I might ask Councilman Engelhardt, if I may, just some basic questions so you can bring me up to date. Has there been any study that was precipitated by residents who complained about excess smoking in any of our parks or all of our parks?
Study, not that I'm aware of, no.
Say again?
No.
No.
In terms of a study, no.
Have you had any complaints this year?
I don't know that we track the complaints in that sense, but I know once this issue has come out, I've actually received a number of comments from folks, primarily talking about the concerts that we have, not so much the
Please forgive me.
But I've heard a number of complaints.
I'm having difficulty hearing you. Shame on me. I forgot to bring my ears this evening. I'm in my 72nd year, and sometimes I do have some difficulty with certain tonal levels.
Okay.
So I've missed some salient points that you obviously were trying to share with me.
All right, let me try again then.
Yes, thank you.
I don't know that we keep track because, again, there's nothing prohibiting it, so I don't know that we keep track of complaints in that sense. But once this issue has come out, then I have received a number of comments from folks who have dealt primarily with the concerts that we have, where we have several thousand people in a fairly small area, and have had smoking aspects there that have caused issues that, but there's nothing you can do. And one comment was made, well, maybe they should just put it out or be asked to leave. Well, you can, but if they choose not to, they have the ability to stay there.
I see. First of all, I should have prefaced my comments by telling you I've never smoked. I'm not a smoker. I think it's a rather filthy habit. It's a personal point of view. And certainly with Dr. Price here, I'd best be saying that anyway. But for the record, I'm taken aback. You're telling me that you haven't recorded any complaints, formal complaints or informal complaints, just word of ear?
I would say informal complaints, but not a formal method.
Informal, yes. How many would you say offhand?
I don't know.
And there's no study that for
we're often criticized about studies that we make, but no, we have not done a study for that.
Well, I've supported the ban on smoking in restaurants and public places, indoors. Again, because I personally and physically respond. My throat. I have a problem with that and with my eyes. But we're talking about an outdoor area. You make a fine point about large crowds for a specific family event. I would be upset. I was at the park recently on one of our recent occasions several weeks ago, and the gentleman behind me insisted on smoking a cigar, and I smiled my way through it, although I was unhappy with it, especially with the breeze coming my way. But there wasn't anything that said he couldn't do it, and guess what? I could have gotten up and moved, I suppose, or I could have gone and asked him to put it out. But I was trying to be good-mannered. But I'm surprised now you're telling me that there's a $1,000 fine and possible jail time, and you have no study or no complaints to back up something like that. So I'm just taken aback because I'm wondering essentially what has happened to the intrinsic concept of individual liberty here. Certainly there might be a modicum of common sense that we might all bring to the table here. I think the suggestion by Mayor Wood, perhaps, I've forgotten. It's hard for me to track and keep these things I'm just a poor country boy, and I have trouble with that. But someone said, and I think it was the mayor, how about a warning the first time around? You know, there are people that do wander in and out of our public parks who do visit. We certainly have people in transit. And for a $1,000 fine, the Scot in me says that's an awful lot of pennies to be taken away from an individual. So I am having some difficulty with this. I wish I'd known about this before, so I could have really given it some thought.
Well, if it helps, I think you're stating your case well. So
say again?
I think you're stating your case well, so don't worry about that. We'll disagree on those, but I understand your point.
Well, I appreciate your comments. I must tell you, though, again, I've only been up here once before, and you've all been very patient with me. I'll remind you, I'm a new resident in Roswell. I'm one of those, dare I say it in front of all these folks. I hope no children are here, but I've been described by some of your neighbors as a damn Yankee, so because I am Stan. But I'm somewhat disappointed by this city. If they go ahead with this, there must surely be a better way of dealing with this. There are fine people out there, I'm sad to say, a number of them who are addicted, and this is a serious issue for them. There must be a more practical or pragmatic way we can deal with that. Dr. Price is familiar with the study that has been with us for a couple of decades now, indicating that if we take that classic study with heroin and crack and nicotine, that the crack comes first in the level of addiction. Then you have nicotine, and then heroin after it. Am I correct, Dr. Price? Everett Koop, that's a study that came out, and it came out in that. Now, I'm not justifying smoking or whatever. I certainly understand the addiction. I remember many old-timers when I was a kid who would say in my dad's tavern, God, I wish I could get rid of this. I wish I could just quit. Now, we pretty much knew after Dr. Koop's study came out why it's so difficult. And as I've said, I'm not a smoker, but there's a question of individual liberty here, too. Have we become so dense that, with all due respect, I don't mean to insult you, but aren't we a little off the reservation on this one? I would hope that you might just table this for a little while longer, give it some thought, and maybe tailor-make it so that it will be family-friendly, which is what I think your intent is, and I appreciate it. But let's have a little more flexibility in it. I was told a long time ago, before I taught constitutional law and whatever, that the good laws are those that are flexible. So I hoped you would give that some thought. I love Roswell, and I don't want anyone to be throwing stones at it. And this could be just a wee bit embarrassing if we didn't think about it. I'm appreciative for your courtesy, all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Does anyone else wish to speak? Not, we'll close the public discussion. Any discussion by council before we take a vote? Councilmember Diamond.
I think, like a lot of ordinances that Roswell passes, it really is nothing we've gone looking for. It's been driven by complaints from citizens and experiences they've had. I can tell you that in the last at least year I've been following this issue, plenty of people have spent plenty of time trying to find a solution that'll work for everybody. And if everybody was responsible, we certainly would not have gone looking for a dog ordinance or a chicken ordinance, or none of us would have invited that into the process. Unfortunately, not everybody operates that way. And if you've come to the park and if you've had the experience of going to Riverside Park and sitting down for a concert and having that whole evening ruined, you would understand the situation that these complaints have arisen from. If you've brought your elderly grandparent in to watch your child's softball game, and you've gone through 20 minutes of getting them to their seat, and someone's decided to stand behind you and smoke, it's not a case of just stepping away. If you're a runner and you're on the park on the trail at 7 o'clock in the morning and somebody in front of you smoking, it seems like the park ought to be one place you ought to be able to run. So, my dad was a smoker. He came to the games. It was a quasi issue on a regular basis. And I don't think anybody's looking to limit our liberties down the road. And I can tell you that, Roswell's never been a city that goes out looking to find people arbitrarily. And in fact, they go the other direction. The ride-alongs I've done with the police, they'll do, for every 20 traffic stops, they might do 2 tickets. Most of the time, they're looking to give a warning and just kind of keep things moving. That's not their intention. So I really can't imagine a circumstance that doesn't involve some other behavior that would constitute an arrest or a $1,000 fine. But I think it gives the police an option when someone is not going with the best practice and not acting like they should in a public place. So that's the reason I'm supporting this. Thank you.
Further discussion? Councilmember Wynn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to preface this that I smoked for 30 years. I quit 17 years ago. Don't try to figure my age because I'm not going to tell you when I started smoking. And it's tough. It's very, very tough. I mean, I still every once in a while would like to have, a nice one when I'm sitting outside, but I just know it's not possible. But I want to kind of tell people how this happened. We have a Wrexham Park Commission here that has been appointed by this mayor and council. Very respectable, intelligent, free-thinking people who serve on this Rec and Parks Commission. And they come to us when they hear complaints, where they hear something that's not going right, and they help us with our policies, our ordinances, and our procedures. And this is how this came about. It came through the Recs and Parks Department. So, and so if you want to know how it happened, that's how it happened. But other than that, I just feel that I understand about the life, liberties, and all that, but I also know the side effects of secondhand smoke and smoking. And if we're going to be our healthy city that we would like to be, I don't see where we cannot enforce this. And again, on the $1,000 fine, that's for any, help me out, Mr. Davidson, the $1,000 fine up to a year is for what cases now?
That's for any general ordinance violation.
So we're not picking on smokers. It's for any general violation. It's up to a $1,000 fine or up, to a year in jail.
90 days.
90 days, excuse me. I'm trying to do a year. But I do agree with Ms. Diamond on this, that I think this is something that we have to do. And we're not doing the cutting edge here, guys. This has been done in a lot of cities, not just in Georgia, but in the United States. And I just think that this is going to be a trend around the country now, and I'm going to be supporting this ban.
Any other discussion? Councilmember DiPolito.
Mayor, I have a question. Do we have a list of the cities that have implemented this type of ordinance? Joe, do you have this?
In the immediate metropolitan area of the city of Kennesaw, the city of Douglasville, Clayton County, city of Gainesville, Henry County, and Rome-Floyd County all have smoking bans.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Councilmember Price.
Oh, Mr. Glover, before you sit down, I just have one question. The size of the parks, we have several parks that are quite large, number of acres, is that not right?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you describe those?
Well, we have the Roswell Area Park, which is right at 80 acres. East Roswell Park is approximately 50 acres. Or no, excuse me, 60-something acres now. We got this additional property. Big Creek Park is 106 acres. Lita Thompson Park is 142 acres. And the rest of them are 20, 30, 40 acres.
Thank you. Yeah, it seems to me that in those large areas there could be found some locations where a person might be able to have a smoke, given that nicotine addiction is a pretty tough problem to deal with. That's all I have for Mr. Glover, but I had some other comments as well, if I may.
Please.
I'm thinking that I'm the only council member not in favor of this smoking ban in outdoor publicly owned parks. At least that was the way it was during the initial first reading.
We already have an indoor air ordinance that was developed to protect everyone from the aggravation and the potential health hazard of secondhand smoke inside buildings. I am not aware of any citizen complaint regarding smoking in the parks of Roswell. I've been hearing since we've had this discussion that it is possibly a problem during the concerts, and I think that's a very limited and specific instance that could be dealt with totally separately other than an ordinance of this sort. Most people go to parks for exercise and fresh air. I think if people are considerate of each other, there should be plenty of room in those large parks for smokers and non-smokers alike. Really, this is a clash between the legal rights of adult smokers to legally smoke outdoors and the desire of non-smokers to breathe clean air. But it's going beyond this these days. Establishing a smoke-free society may be a very noble goal, but there are still plenty of smokers out there who will resist that attempt to control their action. Approximately 20% of the American population does smoke. So that's fully 1/5 of the people who do enjoy to smoke. I believe that everyone deserves the freedom and also enjoys the responsibility to choose between the healthier route of not smoking or the seriously dangerous and damaging activity of smoking. As a physician, I would never want to encourage smoking, but I do want to discourage the tendency of government to try to control every aspect of our lives and to take away our freedoms, be it to choose the foods that we want to eat, salt, sugar, fat, or the doctors we see, or even the businesses we engage in. I'm all for personal responsibility. As the government gets bigger, we as individuals get smaller. Why perpetuate a nanny state where someone has to tell someone else how to make personal decisions? Why clutter up our parks with expensive no smoking signs? People just need to take responsibility for themselves. Throw your cigarettes away. If someone is smoking near you, ask them to go to a designated location or just go upwind. Tolerance would go a long way. The Declaration of Independence showed that the American spirit respects and regards the pursuit of happiness in each individual as far as he determines it for himself. If a person wants to smoke, he should be allowed unless he is infringing on the happiness of someone else. But the smoker should not defer to those for whom happiness includes the banning of the rights of others. We certainly don't need fines or jail times for people caught smoking in the parks. But of course, as we've heard, this would be left up to the discretion of the judge. Again, 20% of Americans smoke. I'm not sure exactly the statistic in Roswell, but I feel like I represent 100% of the people in this city, and I don't want to turn my back on 1 out of 5. Thank you.
Any further discussion? I hope the council will consider amending this ordinance to place some reasonable limits. I had no problem with passing an ordinance saying there would be designated places within the park that you could smoke, but a total ban, I believe, for the reasons Mr. Largent stated at the beginning, were not appropriate. Certainly appropriate to ban smoking at the concert. Certainly appropriate to ban smoking in the stands. It's appropriate to say there would be only designated places to smoke. But that's not what we're doing here. We're talking about a total ban. In the mayor's office, I have a person there. I'm just a part-time mayor, but Robin in my office works full-time, and her job is to handle citizen complaints. And we get, she works there 8 hours a day, and a good bit of her day is taken up handling citizens' complaints. And she registers those complaints. And I receive complaints, everything from what's happening in the city of Milton to traffic to a full range of complaints. And I will tell you, I have not received one complaint about folks smoking in our park. So I'm not sure where this. I don't think this is driven by complaint. I think what's driving it here is it was said earlier tonight, Roswell needs to make a statement. I think if you believe the purpose of goal of the city is to pass an ordinance to make a statement saying this is what you should do, then I think that would be an appropriate ordinance. But I don't think that's the role of government to tell people what they should do. We can encourage them to do things, but we shouldn't make it illegal if they're not doing what we think they should do. We should only be limiting those things which we say you should not do. If it's hurting someone else, you should not do it. I don't believe and I'm not a smoker, but I believe if you're at that park watching the sun come up and you're somebody who likes to smoke a cigarette and there's nobody in sight other than the ranger who's peeking over the hill and see if you take a smoke, it should not be illegal to smoke. So I believe that the purpose of goal of cities is not to pass ordinances to make statements about what you should do. And we should limit ourselves to passing ordinances of what you should not do. And I think this goes beyond the role of government. It's infringing on individual liberties. And I hope this council reconsider and go back to the existing ordinance, which says there should be designated areas within the park in which you can smoke and which you cannot smoke. And if it's a public sidewalk, unless we are getting ready to go and make it illegal to smoke on all public sidewalks in Roswell, we shouldn't make it illegal to smoke on any sidewalk, whether it's in a park or not in a park. We've gone too far in this case. I hope the council will consider that. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, raise your hands. That's Diamond, DePolito, Wynn, Eigelhart, and Orleans. All opposed. Councilman Price. Passes 5-1. This time we'll call upon Community Development, Councilmember Betty Price.
Did you call on me, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilmember Price, liaison to the Community Development Department. It's your turn to read the agenda.
Thank you. Item number 6. I don't know if I need to read all that. It has been deferred to next month. RZ 1005, CV 1001, and CU 1003, 2925 Holcomb Bridge Road will be taken up at a future discussion. Item number 7.
Hold on. Is this RZ 1005?
Yes.
RZ 1005, there's been a request for a deferral. Is there anyone here tonight who came here tonight to speak out on, this is the Holcomb Bridge Road, Ramco Gershon Development, I think that's Horseshoe Bend. Across from Horseshoe Bend. Is anyone here to speak on that issue tonight? If you're here just to listen, it will be, if it's deferred, it will be coming back again. So do we have a motion to defer?
I move to defer that item.
Motion to defer by Councilmember Price. Do we have a second? Second by Councilmember Eigelhart. All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously.
The next item, CU 10-02, conditional use 800A Mansell Road. Mr. Townsend will give us the details.
Thank you, Dr. Price. This request is for a conditional use to allow a hand car wash, and the subject property is Zone C3. It's approximately 0.7 acres, located at 800 Mansell Road. This is the existing site plan of the property. Dr. Mastro has his dentist operation in the eastern part of the office. He's requesting to be allowed to do a hand car wash in the western part, which has a bank, an old bank, drive-throughs at that location. Staff has recommended approval. The Planning Commission reviewed this application, also recommended approval, and wish to control the number of bays to be limited to 2 locations. Also included the appropriate hours of operation the requirement for proper stormwater management and also compliance with wastewater requirements set forth by the Clean Water Act. These 8 conditions are recommended for approval of this application. Staff would recommend approval.
Does council have any questions for Mr. Townsend? Councilman Orleans.
Brad, I know there was a lot of discussion at Planning Commission about which 2 bays, and there's some logic to keeping the outside one free.
Yes.
Has that been discussed with fire department at all or other departments, and has there been any decision on that?
It would be staff's recommendation that the left or the outside lane be left open to allow for proper passage of the cars.
That's not clear in here, is it?
No.
Okay. And the applicant is agreeable to that?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Yes, Councilmember Diamond.
Sorry, so are we going to hear from the applicant, or?
Yes, that would be next.
Okay, I'll reserve my question.
At this time, we'd like to hear from the applicant.
I'm David Mastro, the applicant. I wanted to do a hand car wash on the western side of the building. Tried to lease the building for over a year. The economy like it is, it just won't lease out. There was bank facility there for, I guess, the length of the time that building has been there, about 20 years. So it's been vacant. And it just seemed like to me that the building laid itself out for a wraparound car wash, hand car wash only. And so that's what I propose to bring to the council.
Council have any questions for the applicant? Councilmember Diamond.
Doctor, I want to commend you first on a very creative way to solve a not great situation. I'm wondering how you're going to market this. Is this strictly, do you envision this for your patients, or would you have signage that would market it to the people in the restaurants or passersby?
I think I would like to have signage on I have a road sign with the ability to have a sign. And out on the front of the building, we have a sign marquee built in to the building. That would be how I would advertise it.
Thank you.
Other questions for the applicant? Councilmember Price.
Is this to be a separate business? Or?
Yes, separate business.
Thank you.
Other questions for the applicant? Thank you. Does this time anyone in the audience have any questions or comments? Do we have a motion? You may have a seat.
Thank you.
There's no rebuttal necessary.
I move to approve CU 10-02, conditional use of a car wash at 800A Mansell Road, along with the staff conditions 1 through 8.
Motion for approval by Councilmember Price. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Orleans. Any further discussion by council? Councilmember Orleans, your hand is up.
Again, just my question, do we need to clarify in the motion, Brad, or is it other ways that will be handled for that outside lane to be free? Or
Mr. Davidson saying a clarification would be appropriate. What clarification are you suggesting, Mr. Davidson?
That the outside lane be left open for through traffic?
If it pleases the council, I'll add that to the motion.
Mr. Orleans, did you second that?
Yes, I second it.
All right, it's for approval with that condition. Does the applicant have any trouble with that condition? No. Thank you, sir. Further discussion? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously.
The next item is PV10-01, Parkway Village, 300 East Crossville Road, FDB Roswell LLC. Mr. Townsend will give us the details.
Yes. This is a Parkway Village small tract request. The site is approximately 1.49 acres located at 300 East Crossville Road. The applicant is proposing a plan to allow for 3 office buildings. 2 of the proposed office buildings are 1 story. The third office building is proposed at 2 stories. 3 proposed office will total 25,600 square feet. There's the appropriate parking and landscaping proposed on the site. The proposed plan indicates the removal of 6 specimen trees that are currently located on the site. This is the language in the current Parkway Village that talks about small tracts. It includes 2 criteria dealing with council's action in finding that the land is not feasible to be combined with abutting property to create a larger tract. The second issue or caveat with that is that the development of the tract as proposed will result in a better land use than if the small tract were combined with abutting properties. Those are the criteria in the current Parkway Village requirements related to small tract required. This is a location map showing the 300 location on Crossville. This is an aerial showing the existing house, the houses on either side of the property. This is the current zoning map showing that it is included in the Parkway Village overlay location. This is the sign that was posted related to the public hearing, as well as a look at the existing specimen trees behind the existing house. This is an analysis of this proposed location. This has been before council 3 other times. This provides the analysis of the square footage requested at that time, what would be the density per acre, and the design of the 3 other proposals. As you can see, the 3 other proposals were all under 10,000 square feet per acre. The proposal that is requested this evening is over 13,000 square feet in the 3 buildings per acre. This is a site plan that was submitted by the applicant showing the 3 buildings, the parking layout, the landscaping buffer to the north adjacent to the single-family residence, the access to Crossville on the south side or the left-hand side of the drawing. This is an analysis of the existing specimen trees done by our landscape architect in reviewing this proposal, showing that the trees would be impacted in excess of the allowed 25% in the critical root zone, and none of the trees would survive with the placement of the buildings as well as the parking located as it's currently designed. This is the recommended approval conditions from staff for this proposed application, dealing with the site plan to coordinate the driveways with the design for RDOT and GDOT, to provide interparcel access at 3 locations which are adjacent to the property lines, and to meet the requirements for the land disturbance permit to install a sidewalk along Crossville, and they may be required additional right-of-way dealing with a deceleration lane and sidewalk and ramps.
Does the council have any questions for Mr. Townsend? Councilman Orland.
Brad, on your chart earlier, you indicated in 2010, I mean, the proposals before were 9,000 square feet, 9,900 square feet. And 2010 is, I'm sorry, I was looking at the acreage. You said over 13,000, but the density is 25.6. Is that correct?
The requested total square footage this evening requested is 25,600. That calculation works out at over 13,000 square feet per acre.
And again, remind me, we have how many acres?
1.49.
49?
94, sorry.
94. Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Councilmember Price.
Clarify the request. Is the request for this specific site plan, or is the request merely for small tract status?
The request is to receive small tract status for this specific site plan.
So would we be approving this site plan if we approve this request?
Yes.
Thank you. Councilmember DiPolito.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Townsend, very early on, the applicant had, before he was actually an applicant, had suggested that he wanted to put together a plan that would allow for the 3 parcels in the future to be developed together, so that the 3 parcels would work together, which isn't consistent with the Parkway Village, but it kind of starts to approach the intent of the Parkway Village. Do we have a grading plan or anything to show how these would work together? I noticed, one, there's no interparcel access, so that's an issue, obviously. But do we have any sort of grading or topography to determine if this would actually work?
No, sir, we do not.
Excuse me, Rich, can you speak into your mic a little bit better?
I'm sorry. Do I need to repeat
Speak
that?
into your mic a little bit better.
Do you not hear me at all? Do I need to repeat all that?
I must be getting close to 72 or 74. I can't pick up certain tones.
All right. I'll try to rephrase all of that. Prior to the applicant making an application, I had a discussion with him, and his thought was to come up with a plan that would work with all 3 parcels, so that although it doesn't meet the intent of the Parkway Village, it starts to approach that, and that the 3 parcels can be developed in a uniform fashion, can be developed together over time, sort of in phases, which I think is a creative solution. However, I don't see interparcel access, I don't see any topography, so I was asking, do we have anything to see if that would indeed be the case with this plan?
We do not have a grading plan for this application. And one of our conditions is to condition that they provides that the driveways go to the property lines for future interparcel access.
Okay. Another question I had, the staff had a concern about having 2 driveways close together. There's a driveway, I guess it's just immediately to the west. And if there was interparcel access, we would be able to combine those 2 driveways into one and potentially have a shared driveway there, I would suppose.
I'm sure that would be something that our transportation department would look at. And yes, we do have a concern. They are 2 legal parcels and did have, access to the homes, but these would be access to businesses, which would be, used more often.
Is that a requirement of our transportation department, or is that just a suggestion?
Suggestion.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Townsend? Thank you, Mr. Townsend. This time we'll hear from the applicant.
Mr. Mayor and members of the council, my name is Alan Mannheim. I represent FDB Roswell. As you know, this is not the first time my clients have come before you. They have indeed this time come to members of council and worked with staff in order to come up with a cohesive plan. As you know, this is in the Parkway Village area, and it requires assemblage up to 7 acres. My clients have tried and tried and tried and tried to assemble this. They are bounded on both the east and the west by another individual who owns both pieces. My clients have offered about $200,000 less than the fair market value in order to try and come up with assemblage.
Was that less or more than fair market value?
I'm sorry?
You said
more.
You said less. Just wanted to catch the record there.
Thank you. It doesn't work. It hasn't worked, and I don't think it's going to work, and I think you're going to hear from them tonight as well. However, my clients have once again received a recommendation from staff to approve this small tract application. As you know, they fought, and they're not going to fight. They want to get something done that is appropriate. Now, let me answer something that Councilman DiPolito has brought up. I'm going to show you a transparency here now. That may answer your question. This is something that could be done. Phase 1 is what we currently have. Is that better? Okay, thank you. Clear. What we see marked as potential future Phase 2 and potential future Phase 3 are properties of the adjoining landowners. Our proposal is the middle part, Phase 1. This shows you how it could be done. It allows for future development. It allows for fair future development and assemblage. It still wouldn't come up to the 7 acres. It's still going to be a little bit short. But it does allow and show you how this could be done. It is not being done at this point because we don't have the adjoining landowner agreeing to go along with this. However, I want you to know that the existing plan, my client agrees to go along with all of the recommendations. My client will indeed work with the city. My client will indeed meet each and every condition that you have placed upon them in the recommendation. Now, we obviously have an interest in having this property developed. I am required, in order to perfect the record, for lack of a better term, to read something into the record, which I'm going to do, about the constitutionality of denying this to him. So please bear with me while I read this. I just have to do it. My client's position is that the city zoning ordinance, in requiring that this property be developed as a minimum 7-acre tract under the Parkway Village overlay, is unconstitutional in that it destroys the marketability of the property and renders it less valuable or without a reasonable economic value, and it therefore constitutes an unconstitutional taking of my client's property without just and adequate compensation and without due process of law, in violation of the 5th and 14th Amendments to the United States Constitution, as well as Article 1, Section 1, Paragraph 1, Article 1, Section 3, Paragraph 1A, and Article 3, Section 6, Paragraph 2 of the Constitution of the State of Georgia of 1983 as amended. It likewise denies my client equal protection of the laws, and the effect would be to impose onerous, burdensome, and unnecessary conditions on the use of the property, and the requirement that a property owner be forced to purchase and acquire property of other abutting or nearby property owners in order to develop and use his property is unconstitutional for those reasons as well. Now, with that said, I want you to also know that my client already has 2 potential tenants who have signed letters of intent to take up to 9,000 square feet of space in these buildings. They would be professional in nature. One is an architect, one is a dentist, and it would have as little impact as possible on the surrounding property owners. With that said, we would ask you to approve it and to follow the recommendations of staff. We also, if you would like to hear from the architect and the engineering firm, we have both of those here tonight available to answer any and all of your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Manheim. Does the council have any questions for the applicant? Councilmember Eichelhardt.
Just one, particularly regarding the comment, and I understand why you read the things about the unconstitutionality, but I assume also, I guess the question is that you've read the Superior Court, Appeals Court, and Supreme Court elements regarding a similar proposal that basically did not support that. Just want to...
That's correct.
Okay. That's just one question then.
Thank you, Councilmember Price.
Just a question about the timing of the acquisition of the property. Was it prior or subsequent to the Parkway Overlay District being instituted?
The acquisition of this property?
Right.
Kevin, I believe it was subsequent.
So
it was purchased knowing it was in Parkway Village. Yes, it was.
Other questions of council? Councilmember DiPolito.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I actually have questions for the architect or engineer.
Sure, they're here. Whoever you want to ask first.
I guess the engineer or the architect. I don't really have any questions for.
Hi, I'm Derek Westfall with Engineer Design Technologies.
My question specifically is to the west. When you look at this plan showing the interparcel access, which I think works pretty well when you put the three parcels together, there is access to the west toward the front, but you're not showing that potential future access on the plan that was submitted to us. Was that inadvertently left off?
Yeah, I think that just there is existing access there. You can see it on the other plan we had, I think.
While you're looking for that, staff has recommended conditions. Are you comfortable with all the conditions that staff has recommended?
Yes.
I only have one plan and a survey.
Can I show up? I believe this is like you're talking about the existing driveway right there.
Right.
It just didn't show up on the other plan.
So it's not on the plan. But the intent is to have a driveway there?
Do you have the site plan?
This one.
The other one. This one here.
This one.
I guess the question is in reference to this driveway, correct, sir?
No, the interparcel access headed to the west that shows up on the master plan, for lack of a better word.
Rotating it this way so that we can see west, obviously, to the left of the. So the interparcel axis here?
No, down to the, right there.
In the front. And the question, sir?
It's not on the other plan, but you showed it here, and I thought the representation was this was kind of thought about the future.
Correct. You're saying why isn't there a stub out shown on the proposed plan?
Yes.
Let me go back. Now I understand the question. Going back to this, so the question is why is the area shown here for the interparcel access? Partially, the area is not shown for the interparcel access for the landscaping requirements based on the tree recompense that is required for the site and the available site. It currently is shown on the north side and partially on the south side. And for the current design that we have for the Phase 1 proposal for this project, it's currently not shown from a graphical point of view and from a landscaping point of view for the requirements that we need. Obviously, with the potential Phase 2 and Phase 3, that could be incorporated as part of that design.
And there's no room on the site to put the trees elsewhere?
If required, we can definitely take a look at that and relocate the existing trees to provide a little stub out to meet the setbacks requirements, just to have the interparcel access started there and terminating 5 feet from the boundary line to meet the parking developed.
I think one of the things that makes this plan work is the fact that there's interparcel
we can add that and make the plan work if that's one of the conditions, add that interparcel access stub out there.
Okay. My other question is, have you done a study of the topography on the site?
I went out to the site and looked at it. We did. Did some preliminary stuff on our actual site, but also looked at the interparcel access. There should be no problem with the grade-wise making everything work.
Okay. I went out to the site as well, and I can't believe you could actually make that work based on what I saw.
Well, right here, you're not going to have interparcel access. Here, let's start off the other plan. In this potential area, there would have to be some sort of retaining wall steps, but for driving on the outside where the interparcel access, the cars will be, the grade is relatively flat. If you look at the grading plan for the site, this is just basically our site. There's a hill in the middle of it. So once you get to the outside, it's fairly flat and can connect in, especially after we do some grading here to develop everything.
What is this is not a grading plan. This is the
This is a survey.
This is the existing topography, right?
Existing survey.
Well, from my recollection, I didn't actually measure it, but I'm about 6 feet tall, and I got about midway on the property to the west, and it drops off at least 6 feet and probably 15 feet once you get further back.
And midway is that's a smaller one, and that's midway right in here. So that's basically where there'll have to be some sort of bank in that area with steps for pedestrians, but the major interparcel access for driving, the grades will work on the outside.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Toward the back, it seems virtually impossible because it's got to be at least 12 feet. I didn't measure it.
It starts falling. If you go all the way back, it starts falling back down and flattens out.
And then to the east side, it goes up a hill. So I guess I have a hard time believing that you could execute this program.
Well, on the east side too, you're going to have the same issue. There'll be a bank in the back of the building, and then it's relatively flat right here around the retaining pond, and also flat in the back right now.
Okay, well, it's flat on each parcel. It's not flat in between each
right,
parcel.
It's not flat in the middle. There'll be grade transitions in the back of these buildings and also in this landscape area in here. But for vehicle interparcel access, the grades can work. So it's relative.
If this plan were to be approved, it would appear that you'd have some significant grading challenges right to the property line. So are you planning on building large retaining walls on your property?
We may need some, but also in this area, this sidewalk's fairly large. Right now it's shown on the site plan as 8 feet 9 inches, so we can make up some room and push the parking in a little bit to shorten that sidewalk if we have issues grading back there. But I'm confident we can meet everything to code and stay on our property to make the site work and develop it.
I wish I could believe you. I have a hard time envisioning that. Thank you.
Other questions for the applicant? Thank you, sir. We'll hear from the public, and we'll give the applicant an opportunity for rebuttal after we hear public comment. Does anyone in the public wish to have any comments or questions? Yes, sir. Come forward if you'll give us your name and address, and then we'll like to hear from you.
My name is Joe Creech. I live at 275 Putting Green Lane. A corner of my property abuts this property. My neighbor is James Hogue, who is serving in Afghanistan right now, and I have not been able to reach him to discuss this proposal with him. His property is directly behind this proposal. I don't know which scares me most, the proposal they presented for the one lot or the one they presented for all three. The buildings at the back of that lot are 40 feet from the property lines of the residences adjoining those lots. The back of those lights slope down toward mine, toward Mr. Hogue's, and toward Ben and Barb Sample's house. There's no detention area there. I'm told that there will be piping that will pipe the water away. I'm not sure how well those things work. I have the same concerns now that I had 2 years ago. This proposal does not appear to me for small tract status, does not appear to me to be in keeping with the intent of what we were told as property owners, and I owned my property before Parkway Village zoning. We were told that our property would be protected, that this would be, the intent of this was not to have urban sprawl. It seems to me there's a lot of vacant office space in Roswell right now. There's also a lot of vacant buildings that could be made office space rather than establishing more that will be unoccupied. Apparently the city has expended a good bit of funds defending its decision that this would not be, a small tract would not be allowed, in terms of the constitutionality of the property owner of this property that was acquired after the zoning is concerned. I understand where they're coming from, but what about the rights of the property owners and the residential properties behind this property? No one from the city staff has contacted us and asked us what our views are. If this is approved, I hope you will also consider moving those buildings a little more toward the front of the property rather than the rear. It's been 2 years since I spoke to the council about this property. That's been plenty of time for people who own this property to plant trees and establish that berm they keep talking about and have it underway. I don't think there's a tree been planted, and we're talking about destroying some more trees. I think the density is too big for the piece of property, and I hope that the council will make the same decision it made last time and consider the rights of the property owners behind that property as well as the property owners on either side of that property. Thank you.
Mayor, City Council, my name is Lisa Peverell. I live at 545 Meadow Glen Trail. You've had it right all along. Don't change your minds midstream or at the end of the line or wherever we are on this process. This request for small tract status is not appropriate. It is not what the intent of small tract status was supposed to do, to be. You had the little 2 criteria up here earlier. It's always been when you cannot make an assemblage, not when it's not convenient and not when the timing isn't right. It is supposed to be when it's a standalone parcel that has no other means of development. It's not about, it's the adjoining 2 property owners or 1 property owner, whatever, won't sell to me, so I can't make the right assemblage. So here, let's throw the Parkway Village out there with the baby, with the bathwater, and put a small tract where it doesn't belong. Small tract is for when you can't make the 7-acre assemblage or when the standalone lot doesn't make 7 acres. In this case, the parcel is between 2 adaptive reuse parcels that have been in existence and are currently in existence, operating just fine. This parcel has a structure that has a tenant and has been operating this entire time. The entire time that they've been coming to you for this small tract change, They've been having tenants in that space, and it's been operating. So it's not that it's any different than every other adaptive reuse structure along the corridor. The one thing that makes this parcel different than the other similarly situated parcels all along the 6.9-mile tract is the fact that the owners of this property have never invested in it to make it look like and be as viable as the others around it. You know, if they're not having the success with tenants that some of the others are having, then maybe that's the reason. But you don't throw out the entire concept of adaptive reuse versus small tract because someone doesn't want to put forth the right effort or doesn't want to be patient. And thank you, Dr. Price, for asking the question of when they acquired this property, because it was after Parkway Village went into place. They knew what they were buying. They knew that they were one parcel in a line of several parcels. Yes, the two parcels on either side of this one are adaptive reuse and work just fine, and there's no reason that this one can't as well. And there's a fourth parcel off to the side that is still lived in. So eventually you can make this assemblage. It's not about, can I make it 3 years ago, can I make it last year, can I make it today? That was never part of the Parkway Village decision on adaptive reuse versus a small tract development. And I just find it frustrating that we're back doing the same parcel again. And now it's getting bigger. It's getting more, it's twice the size it was when it started. And I find it, if it wasn't appropriate at half its size, then how in heaven's name is it appropriate at twice its size? If we couldn't accept one building in the middle of the parcel, then how are we going to accept three, one of which is 2 stories on a lot that is at least 15 feet higher than the two on either side of it? The line of sight coming around the bend on either way on Crossville is going to be horrific. The other 2-story commercial buildings along that corridor are all in valleys. They are not sitting on hilltops. The whole point of Parkway Village was to keep the residential spaces behind and within the corridor, to preserve those, to keep the homeowner, ex-urban kind of quasi-rural attitude we had going on. If we start sticking 2-story buildings on top of hills next to small little buildings, not only have you ruined that line of sight and the feel as you come around that curve, but I have real doubts about whether that phase 2, phase 3 thing could even work, because I think I don't necessarily want to be put in the position of channeling Johnny Cochran, but just because it fits doesn't make it right. Okay? I mean, just because you can cram it in there doesn't mean that it fits the intent. It doesn't mean that it's what was best for the city. And I think we tend to lose track over time of what, with all due respect to the city staff members who I know have spent probably more hours than you ever thought you'd care to reading Parkway Village guidelines. It's not like anything else in the city for a reason. For a reason. You've stuck to your guns because you know why we did this. Mr. Orland, you were on the committee that helped write this. You know how many hundreds of hours and debates and wailing and gnashing of teeth went into the creation of Parkway Village. This isn't right. This isn't what it was supposed to do. When you start piecemealing large developments that you cram into a small lot that's between other similarly situated parcels that are functioning as they're supposed to, the onus is on this property owner to make it work until you can make the assemblage. That was the point. When you get all 4 of those lots, someday you'll make the 7 acres. If you can't get all 4 lots for whatever reason and you get the 3, then come back for small tract. I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's these people. I don't care if it's wherever Kevin is that owns the other. I don't care. I don't care if it's somebody who comes in from the state of Michigan somewhere and buys them all up someday. But that's when you do small tract. You don't piecemeal it on a center lot. Okay? Sorry, I'll move on. I think that may be it, actually. I think I covered all my topics. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor and City Council, my name is Jacqueline Hand. I live at 1075 Grace Hill Drive in Roswell. I'm afraid of this combining these tracts together because it will change the aesthetics of what we have now. And we set a precedent that can't be changed in the future. So I ask you to consider what you're doing, because what we have now works. And I'm worried about the traffic impact and the parking. And Mr. Caldwell's place is lovely, and his building will be hidden by 3 big buildings. Thank you very much for your time.
Good evening. My name is Michael Martino. I live at 120 Pine Glade Trace. I look at it more from the residential side. I'm a realtor professional, as professional as I can be. But in setting this precedent where these commercial properties are abutting the residential properties, I feel for the gentleman whose home is located behind that property, as I know his values are going to decrease. I appreciate the applicant's desire to make as much profit as possible on his property, but there are other people involved, and it almost goes back to that smoking, non-smoking thing, which I will not go back to. But I just think it will hinder and hurt the residential properties and the residential values in the area. So that is all. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Marshall Lichtenstein. I live at 530 Meadow Glen Trail in Roswell. And what she said, that's what I got to say. The 2 abutting properties, the gentleman made it work. It works. This thing works. So please, again, as I said a couple of weeks ago, please do not change it, because it does work. Thank you.
Who else? Yes, sir. Come forward, please.
My name is Kevin Caldwell. I'm a business owner and resident since 1991. I reside at 185 Hamilton Way in Roswell. My beautiful bride and I own the adjacent properties, and we're proud to be here. We own 4 different pieces of property in Roswell, and I love living here and working here. Mr. Mayor and Council, I want to thank you guys for considering this again. We've been through this, several of us, several times. Staff, thanks for continuing to pound through this. It's difficult. But it's my opinion this proposal doesn't take into account the tremendous topographic changes between the properties that I occupy and the project that we're having here. And may I have that slide for the master plan? Can we use that back up here? Is it still up here? I think if allowed to proceed, it places an undue burden on us as adjacent property owners to perform tremendous site work to match with this development if and when it were to become a master plan. In the meantime, a 2-story building will be placed lengthwise on a site overlooking the beautiful landscape of a gravel parking lot and a lot of trucks.
Small track status.
One of which will be 15 feet below the grade. I, along with my tenants, generate over $4 million a year in gross sales and employ 40 to 50 folks here in Roswell. I believe that I have shown how a clean and beautifully maintained existing set of structures contribute to the quality of life in the Parkway Village. I've done so with great economic impact to my family, employees, and the city and my neighbors. And I've taken nothing for granted and taken no shortcuts. The proposed development does not create a compatible environment to the existing business, nor is it compatible with the city's intent for the Parkway Village. Ladies and gentlemen, during the last discussion from another site plan, Mr. Mannheim, the attorney that's representing the client tonight, the applicant tonight, described me as a recalcitrant owner. And I don't think that that is a proper description of someone that you are actually interested in working out some sort of an assemblage. That's not what neighborly people do. They don't call each other names. I'm not opposed to discussions with the applicants for sale, purchase, or assemblage, nor have I ever been. But we must all understand that I operate a business, and to move my business or interrupt its activities impacts the value of my properties disproportionately to my neighbors. Therefore, my property value has a greater intrinsic value to me than to any of them. I respectfully request a denial of this project and encourage the applicant to continue to use this property under adaptive reuse until a better assemblage can occur. A centrally placed group of 4 to 6 buildings, or even one building facing East Crossville with a campus-like feel, will allow for a beautiful, quality village development on these 6 acres. This will provide for more than ample landscape, green buffers, and a perimeter with a real facade facing the best line of sights on East Crossville Road in the Parkway Village area. You know, it's unfortunate that we stand here because Councilman DiPolito 2 years ago attempted to put us all together and create some sort of environment to help us work out and negotiate things. And those negotiations broke down. And at no time since then have they presented a site plan that resembles this plan that we're looking at right here to me. We attempted to get together a month ago. I had to cancel at last notice. But that plan that was dropped off to my office was a rectilinear plan which represents their own property. Guys, I'm not opposed to a discussion about this, but this plan stinks.
Well, first of all, let me say we're not going to get up here and argue and call names either. The facts are the facts. One of the things that I would like to show you, however, is that what Mr. Caldwell has presented to you about the beautiful landscaping of this property on the adjoining pieces of property that he owns. We have on the computer photographs of this, quote, beautiful property, end quote, that we would like to show you. Why don't you just pass it around and just go through it? We're going. Sure.
Yes.
I agree. The standard that was placed up by Mr. Townsend is clear. Upon a finding by the mayor and city council that the tract cannot feasibly be combined with abutting property to create a larger tract of land, or, that's disjunctive, not conjunctive, or development of the tract as proposed will result in a better land use than if the small tract were combined with abutting property, the petitioner shall receive approval. I won't dignify that. I think that what we have proposed to you is indeed that plan. Now, let me say this to you. There is an alternative that we could do, and that is if you don't want a two-story building, which is one of the three, we can make it a one-story building. That would, in effect, reduce the parking requirement, and we could, in fact, move the building on the north side of the property more than 40 feet from the residential area behind it. That is something that could be done, and that is something my client is willing to do. We could reduce the square footage of that middle building, and that's not up. But on the plan that you have, that middle building running north and south, we could indeed make that a one-story building. That would then allow us to move the northerly building more than 40 feet away from the northern boundary of the property. That is something we could do. Now, if we can, that's all I've got to say. Now, if we could show you the beautiful landscaped property that adjoins.
My name is Kevin Otoro. I'm the applicant on the file. But Mr. DePolito, this is the back of that property. I believe the idea of inner access parcel was given to us actually by Mr. Caldwell. That property is being used right now. Those are the tracks that I believe is being used from west and east of us to access his property, which we have no problem. I'm going to be a good neighbor. I have not complained about it. But I took these pictures in our property. It's being used. The topo is fairly in the back flat. We had our engineers that studied it, and we can actually do what we were saying. I spoke to the neighbors in the back. Mr. Creech is absolutely right. I talked to him, and I told him that if he has any concern, bring it tonight. If that building needs to come another 10, 15 feet, we have no problem with that. If, in fact, we get approval, it's conditioned upon us providing proper grading plans, having the engineers look at it, make sure the design review board, which I understand Mr. Caldwell is a member. So all of those issues will be resolved once we get approval. I just could not see spending more money grading on design, on drawing, on plans. Our approval is conditioned upon us satisfying City of Roswell codes. That means we get elevation, we talk to the neighbors, we find out what it's going to look like, and if it's approved, if the grading doesn't work, it doesn't work. The engineers of the City of Roswell are not going to sign off on a drainage plan that does not work. So all those concerns are valid, but we just need an approval to bring the appropriate plan. And I am not opposed to make that second story, a story and a half, only 2,000 square foot, or completely give it up. That was actually put in the plan to try to give it character for the City of Roswell. The building that sits in the front is going to have elevation.
Where we are right now, though, is you have requested 2 and 3-story buildings.
Excuse me, please turn on your microphone.
Where we are right now, though, is not in a negotiation, but we have been presented a 2 and 3-story building, and you're asking the council to approve that site plan, not some lesser site plan. Now, if you'd like to offer up a lesser site plan and put it in front of this council, I think you'd have to do another presentation. So I'm not sure we can change this on the fly as you have suggested.
I'm not sure what the procedure is, Mayor, but if in fact can be conditioned upon us removing that second story, we're not opposed to taking it.
Well, I do appreciate your willingness to compromise.
Show the rest of the photos.
This is the topo. This is actually going into his property. This is the detention pond. I am going to...
If you could, Mr. Manheim, if you could... It's moving fast enough. I don't know whose property the detention pond is on. So
that's Mr. Caldwell's detention pond.
That's Mr. Caldwell's property.
Existing detention pond.
He has a detention pond on his property.
Yeah. That's the landscape property that Mr. Caldwell has.
Okay.
And if we go back, this is our property in the back leading to Mr. Caldwell's property. The gate is put up. So the inner access parcel is already there. It's already being used today. We have 18-wheelers coming back from this side, going to that side. We have equipment crossing our property. That's how really we got the idea, ironically, that the inner access parcel is possible in the back, and inter-access parcel in the front is possible as well.
Well, I'm glad you and Mr. Caldwell are working together to that extent.
And we did try to speak with Mr. Caldwell, but as he mentioned, he was out of town and we had cancellation and we could not obviously get together.
And we're not going to rehash 2 years ago.
Yep, I have other pictures of his current properties if we can.
This is your opportunity.
Okay, go ahead and try.
Fine. There we go.
We need narrative as we go if there's
Sure,
something you want to point out.
this is the property to the east of us, the existing detention pond that was approved before this council, I believe, back in 2004, where Mr. Caldwell got a small tract approval to add additional parking and put detention pond and continues thriving business. We're glad to hear that he is doing fine, but he did get approval on this tract for small tract, put a detention pond next to Crossville, add a diesel lane. This is while the construction was going on. This is the property, I believe, to the east or to the west of us. This is our property. This is Mr. Caldwell's, I presume, backyard. This is another, what the property is being used. These equipments are being stored there, and they're being, obviously, to get back to his other track, he would have to use, he uses our property in the back to open the gate and cross his vehicle to our property.
And our position is that what we have proposed with these buildings, with professional office space, landscaping, would be an improvement.
This is another property of Mr. Caldwell that's being used as a storage for his equipment. Additional pictures. Again,
that's good.
I can go through it.
We just wanted to give you an idea of what the adjoining properties look like.
Thank you, sir. Is there anything further?
No.
Thank you. At this time, we'll have a discussion by council. Is any discussion before we entertain a motion? Councilman Eichelhardt.
I actually have a question I probably should have asked earlier of staff. But in the staff comments, it says that the water resources engineer has stated the proposed detention pond appears not to meet GSMM requirements. Was that resolved, or is that still an issue at this point?
That is still an issue and would have to be resolved prior to the land disturbance permit.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Nguyen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, Mr. Creech, may I ask you a question, please, sir? Thank you, sir.
If you will let me comment on the pictures.
No, sir, because I'm going to do that. Thank you. If I miss something, I'll let you speak. How's that? Were you approached by the applicant on this new project?
Yes.
And you're not agreeing with what you've been seeing, am I correct? You're not approving or supporting this project.
You're correct.
And your other neighbors are feeling about the same way. Am I correct on that?
I think so. Ms. Sample is here.
Mr.
And
Sample?
two of my neighbors across the street from me are also here.
Okay. I appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
And I think Mr. Hogue made his comment back earlier about his feelings on it.
So you were approached, but you did not give any type of approval to the applicant. Okay. Thank you. To the applicant, please. Whoever would like to step up to this, I have a question, please. A couple of questions. Thank you. My very concern is the 6 specimen trees. The beautiful trees. I've been out there, and I did walk that property Saturday for about 2 hours. I'm very concerned about these specimen trees because I think if you try to come in and just do phase 1 and not combine all 3, you have to take those trees out. So I think there's a better way of doing this project than taking out these trees. And so I'm very, very concerned about cramming in 13,000 square feet. where in our regular ordinance, I think C1, our maximum is 10,000 square feet. So I do have a thing with that. But I am very concerned about the specimen trees. Another thing I'm very concerned about are those pictures, because like I said, I walked it for 2 hours. The pictures that you showed that was supposed to be not good landscaping are behind between 6 and 8 foot wooden fences. When I drive up to Mr. Caldwell's property and I looked at that, I didn't know he had all that stuff back there. So I think that was very disingenuous of you to show those types of pictures tonight, saying that that was his landscape.
Mrs. Wynn, if you have some questions,
I will. I do have another question.
Save your comments until after you ask your questions. This is a time for questions and not a time for opinions.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. But did you know that those pictures were taken behind his fencing and not from the outside? Did you know that?
I'm not sure I understand. What do you mean?
Did you know the pictures that you showed tonight?
Yeah, I walked Mr. Caldwell's property with one of his employee permission. We asked to look at the topo. We went back there to understand the topo better, to answer some of the water management issue and the combination. So we took those pictures simply to understand from a topographic of how it's going to work for the 3 plants, yes.
Okay, and another thing I have a question about is, I think Mr. DePolito brought up, I don't know if you want to bring your engineer back up, but I do have some grave concerns on how that one parcel can be graded or, whatever you have to do to make it buildable, that it will not affect the surrounding areas. Because, like Mr. DePolito said, it's 6 foot in some places, 15 feet in another. So I'm just, again, unless you assemble those 3 parcels, you still think that this first parcel can be assembled.
That's what the engineer told me, so I let them to explain if you would like. I'm not an engineer, so I cannot speak to that. But the studies show that it can be done. On the plan, it shows where the water is being taken down and all the way taken to the detention pond in the front.
Okay, then since the mayor says I have to ask questions, tell me about the specimen trees. How come you cannot configure those buildings and save at least 4 of those specimen trees?
We've tried in the past. I mean, unless we just simply put all these buildings way in the back, I'm not sure of any other. I think the city staff mentioned maybe possibly saving one of the trees, and we're not opposed to that. If it comes to grading the plans, we're not opposing. We're recompensating for all those trees anyway. It's not like we're taking these trees and not recompensating for them. But I understand these are beautiful trees. I understand your concern.
Mrs. Wynn, I don't want to restrict your opportunity to give your opinion. You have that opportunity. I'm just saying, while the applicant is here, if you have questions for the applicant.
That was my question. I was just wanting to know if there was an opportunity for them to look at to be able to save some of those trees.
With this current site plan, we may be able to save 1 if we do additional study.
That's my questions. I'll reserve my comment.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion before we entertain a motion? I'd like to make a observation here. Oh, do we have a comment down here?
I've just been struggling with the definition of feasibility, given the 2 conditions for small tract. That the tract of land cannot feasibly be combined with abutting properties to create a larger tract. At what point does feasible become unfeasible, given the long history of litigation and inability to come to an agreement to combine these properties? I just need to know in my mind, when have we reached the unfeasible point?
According to the ordinance, it says when the petitioner presents sufficient evidence to the mayor and council to convince you of that.
No, sir. This is everyone's had an opportunity for public comment, and if we continue to revisit the public, we won't finish this tonight. So everybody's had a full opportunity to speak. Just an observation here. I was involved in drafting the ordinance. There are a couple of principles of the ordinance that I think we always need to look at when we talk about Parkway Village, in addition to the combining the parcels. One of those principles was a 40-foot green belt, green space along the front, which this has maintained. The other principle, which was there for the protection of the neighbors, was a buffer of either 175 feet or 150 feet with a berm. And it was intentionally placed there so that when it was adjacent to a residential community, there would be a buffer between those communities. The staff and the applicant have looked at a site plan if we did an assemblage. And it's interesting to note that in that site plan, we're at a 40-foot buffer. The ordinance says is that the buffer shall be a minimum of 40 feet. The intention was that we wanted to try to build in flexibility into this ordinance. And some of your lots, if you pull up that site, that site, those adjacent lot site plans, and I'll illustrate it. The adjacent lots, not just this one. No, there was a parcel showing all the adjacent lots. If you look at those property lines, the property line to the west, you will notice there's some lots along Highway 92 who are very shallow, that they're less than 175 feet in depth. And the idea was when you got to those lots, those small lots that were less than 175 feet in depth to require 175 to 150 foot buffer would not build into flexibility. So we wanted to try to give the work out something that was flexible on the lots that were not feasible to combine. We were trying to combine them. And those lots which were very shallow lots, which weren't deep, we needed to have some flexibility in the rear buffer. But in this lot, it is a deep lot. By going from 150 feet with a berm to only 40 feet, we have just violated one of the basic principles of the Parkway Village Ordinance, and that is the buffer between the residential properties and the neighborhood. In this parcel, there's no good reason not to have a generous buffer to the rear. So for that reason, not the feasibility of combining, that I cannot support this ordinance, this site plan, because we're encroaching on these neighbors. They're losing the 150 to 175 foot buffer, which everyone else in the Parkway Village had when it was a deep ordinance. And for that reason, I think the neighborhood should object. And for that reason, I don't think it meets the principles of the Parkway Village Ordinance. We may look at the way this ordinance was drafted, and sometimes we're not as good in drafting ordinances as we should be. But if you look at those principles, this violates that principle of a generous buffer between the property along the frontage and the property to the rear. That's why we put that generous buffer in. And any site plan with these deep ordinances needs to have more than the minimum buffer of 40 feet. And for that reason, I could not support it. With that, we'll entertain a motion. Do we have a motion?
Well, I would like to move to approve the small tract status of PV 10-01 with staff conditions, with the additional condition of showing interparcel access on the west side, and another condition returning to us with a plan showing a one-story building, rear setback of 150 feet, and a berm.
We have a motion by Councilmember Price. Is there a second? Motion fails for lack of a second. Does someone wish to make a second motion? Councilmember Price.
I move to deny PV 10-01.
Motion to deny by Councilmember Price. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember DiPolito. Before we take a vote, this time we'll have opportunity for council to discuss this. And yes, Mrs. Wynn, if you'd like to express your opinions, this is your opportunity. It's not an opportunity to ask questions, it's an opportunity to give express opinions or whatever else you wish to state.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for keeping me straight. I think my Irish Indian blood kind of gets ahead of me a little bit. My concern, and I do thank the mayor for being very articulate about the intent of the Parkway Village, and I do appreciate you doing that. My concerns are two of the specimen trees, taking them out, the topography, because I did walk that property and probably out there for over 2 hours. I can't see how it's going to be done. And I think there is an opportunity for an assemblage on this piece of property and get it something done. And I am very, very disappointed in the applicants with the pictures that they showed of Mr. Caldwell's property, making it try to look like that's what you see from the roads. It isn't. That's all behind, the fencing. And I'm just very, very disappointed that they thought they had to do that to make a point that was very moot point, I think. So I think there is an opportunity for assemblage here. How our ordinance reads, I think that's exactly what it says. So I will be going along with the mayor and the motion to deny.
Does anyone else wish to comment? Councilmember Eichelhardt.
After discussing with David Davidson, our city attorney, I don't have to do this, but he thought it's in the best interest that I disclose that I have received campaign contribution from the Caldwells in the past. Now, of course, they are not the applicant here, nor are they impacted by this in the sense of this project, and I certainly have no direct interest either way, even if they were the applicant. So I will not recuse myself, but do want to make that clear. However, I have made numerous comments about this in other proposals in the past, well before any contribution was ever made, and would say the same thing. Now, of course, we look at each proposal on its own merits every time, but frankly, this one is similar or worse than the previous ones. So all those comments still apply, basically what's been said, so I don't see any need to repeat those. But I did want you to close that one fact, and I will also oppose this.
Councilmember DePolito.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I want to commend the applicant for looking beyond his property. I think for the first time we've seen an application on this property, we've seen some thought as to the impact on the surrounding properties. I think as we've kind of hashed out here, there's some pretty negative impacts, but I'm glad to see that you're looking beyond your own property and starting to take into consideration what the impacts are adjacent. I agree that the impact of the residential area behind is significant, and any future applications ought to address that. Mr. Caldwell referenced that I had tried to bring the parties together to discuss this, and I would like to take an opportunity to encourage that once again and for you all to sit down and continue some dialogue, try to come up with a plan. I think this plan, while the magnitude of it may not be in the right direction, I think the idea of having multiple smaller office buildings that feel residential, provided they have adequate buffers from the neighborhood behind, is a good way to move forward on this property, and maybe there's an opportunity for everybody to benefit from it. Mr. Caldwell has some existing businesses there that probably could continue to stay as they are, and things just need to be moved around and looked at and make sure all the parties, including the residents behind, are protected. So I would encourage you all to continue or renew that dialogue and see if we can't make something happen. Thank you.
Councilmember Eichelhardt.
I'm sorry, I had one other thought that, even not necessarily specific to this one thing, and I apologize to staff right now, but I'm going to kind of say I'm disappointed that this has come back 4 times, and we basically had the same approval from staff and the same recommendations almost word for word, and every time we have opposed those. And I understand fully that we need to have the professional opinion of things, but at some point we've also got to consider the impact of and the intention of this Parkway Village. And I hope that as we look on our new comp plan and some other things that we're doing, that we consider that, so that when it comes back, things that are reflected that deal with that aspect, and that we don't see the same thing every time when it's been pretty clear where we think we ought to go on this.
Does anyone else wish to comment before we take a vote? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. That is unanimous. We're going to take a 5-minute break, which will last 10, if we're lucky. Meeting. Councilmember Diamond, Councilmember Wynn, Councilmember Orleans, Councilmember Price, Councilmember DiPolito, time to stop politicking. Return to work. Companion animals. It's too late to talk about goats. You may proceed, Mr. Townsend. Who's calling the agenda here? Councilmember Price?
RZ10-04, text amendment about companion animals. This is the first reading, Mr. Townsend.
Yes, this was a ordinance initiated by mayor and council to control companion animals. It was reviewed by the Planning Commission on 3 separate meetings. They have recommended approval of the proposed ordinance. They have included the following changes, which were provided in your backup material, is in red. By striking the words companion animals, maybe include wild or exotic animals which require a current state permit for keeping of such animals pursuant to 2754. They requested that to be stricken. On page 2, they added language to comply with under Section A of 8.1.5, and they also requested that a Section C be added to control the limit to 10 within a residential unit for the number of cats. The rest of the language is consistent with that which was initiated by Mayor and Council. Planning Commission did recommend approval of the June meeting with these recommended changes. If you have any questions.
Does the council have any questions for Mr. Townsend? Do we have a motion? We need to read the ordinance first.
Thank you. This is an ordinance to amend the City of Roswell Code of Ordinances and the zoning ordinance regarding the keeping of companion animals within the city limits of Roswell. Now, therefore, pursuant to their authority, the mayor and council adopt the following ordinance. The zoning ordinance of the City of Roswell, Article 3, Section 3.2, definitions, is hereby amended by adding a new definition, companion animals, to read as follows, the text of which is incorporated herein by reference. The Code of Ordinances of the City of Roswell, Article 8.1, Section 8.1.1, definitions, is hereby amended by deleting the definition of companion animal in its entirety and replacing it with a new definition of companion animals, including cross-reference to read as follows, text of which is again incorporated herein by reference. The Code of Ordinances of the City of Roswell, Article 8.1, Section 8.1.5, is hereby amended by adding new Section 8.15b to control the number of dogs, pygmy goats, and Vietnamese pot-bellied pigs each owner is allowed to keep at a residential unit. The limitation and cross-reference is to read as follows, text again of which is incorporated herein by reference. The zoning ordinance of the City of Roswell is hereby amended by adding as a permitted use in all residential zoning districts the keeping of companion animals to Table 5.1 to read as follows. Text is incorporated herein by reference, and if approved, this will be the first reading.
Do we have a motion? Yes, sir. Councilmember DiPolito.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wasn't quick enough to address some questions I had for Mr. Townsend. First, I have kind of a general question. What is the purpose of this ordinance?
The purpose really was crafted from the legal department when we were reviewing the poultry ordinance and had a request for a homeowner was concerned of their neighbor having more than 2 pygmy goats. And once the determination that the pygmy goat would fall under the definition of a companion animal, that definition did not control the number of pygmy goats. We then had a request for how many pot-bellied pigs a resident could keep in their backyard, and that was not controlled either. So in discussions with the legal department, this was crafted and then brought to committee, initiated, and then taken to Planning Commission.
And so that is the reason for the change. I guess I had a little bit more broad question. Why do we have this ordinance to begin? What are we trying to accomplish with this ordinance?
The ordinance in companion animals, it's in Section 8, is trying to identify what would be a nuisance, in trying to control that and give it some quantification. There's also, when the legal department was looking at it, how do we control exotic animals, which are defined by the state in that situation.
So it's for animal control, and we're just trying to define animals that would be acceptable and all others, I guess, would not be.
Right.
Essentially.
Right.
Okay, so I guess having defined that a little bit better, I would have a problem with the third sentence where it says companion animals include, but are not limited to. If we did move forward with this ordinance, I would recommend we take out the language but not limited to, because then it just kind of
opens it up.
It opens it up.
Okay.
It sounds like we're trying to contain it. Also, in that first paragraph, the last sentence is redundant. You have that twice.
Right.
My other question is regarding size of lots. We have townhouses listed in here, so somebody could theoretically have 3 goats and 3 pigs on a townhouse lot.
Right.
I think it would be helpful before the second reading to understand some of the square footage requirements of these lots. I know it's in the ordinance. We could look it up, but it would be helpful for us to have that. So I think when you start talking about townhouses and goats, you might have an issue there. Thank you.
Okay.
Councilmember Price.
I noticed in the discussion of Planning Commission there was some issue of precedence of the county over the city or vice versa, whereby if they had 14 and we had 10, and we could...
Our ordinance would then rule, correct.
Right. Now, what else is in this that's not already covered by the county?
I'm not sure if there is much. I mean, we use the animal control for
how much more onerous or specific is this compared to the county or the state for that matter?
The county uses regulations in dealing with controlling animals, and they have categories for animals: horses, hogs, dogs, rabbits, guinea pigs, hamsters, chickens, turkeys, geese, ducks, pigeons, and fowl. Those are they break them into 4 different categories.
And do they numerically limit the animals?
Yeah, they limit maximum number. They actually have a limitation in a couple of different ways. A distance in feet that the enclosure is from a residential property line. And they also control the area per animal. The animal has to have a certain size of the pen, and they control a maximum number of animals allowed.
So we're bound to that.
Right.
And their regulation, or their requirement for cats is how many?
10.
They have 10 already.
Yes. Dogs. Dogs and cats.
Dogs
are 10.
and cats is 10.
Right.
So this would be superfluous since it's already spelled out in the county.
Right.
Bryce, any other questions?
Not from me.
A question was raised on another ordinance, which I don't want to revisit, about complaints. And have we received any complaints about mice other than the wild ones?
Not to my knowledge, sir.
Or fish?
Not to my knowledge.
Or I know from time to time I hear complaints about cats and dogs. And we're not going to talk about poultry. We've already created that one. But do we need an ordinance to regulate mice if we've never received any complaints?
Answer that? I mean,
yes.
There is you actually have to have a permit to have a mouse.
But do we need, as a city, do we need an ordinance?
Not if the state requires you already to have a permit.
I'm just wondering if we're not, we've got enough ordinances to keep our staff busy, or at least so I hear. And I just wonder sometimes if we're not spending more time creating ordinances for complaints that aren't arisen. I recognize dogs and cats because I'm trying to look at instances which I have received complaints. Dogs, cats, and poultry and livestock. I know we've had that whole discussion.
Right.
But to go beyond that when we don't have complaints and we're trying to create hypothetical situations, I'm just drawing that to the council's attention, is that should we be in the business of regulating mice? Councilman Orleans has his hands up, and then I'll return to Councilman DePolito.
Well, on this whole line of thought, I guess I was under the impression it was being driven out of legal, that it was something we should do or redefine or something. I'm good with it going away. Then I would move for I shouldn't move for deferral. Never mind.
Yeah.
Councilmember DePolito.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is an existing ordinance that we were modifying to add the pygmy goats and the Vietnamese potbelly pigs because apparently we had some
So we currently
issues.
regulate mice.
So we had some issues. We already do. Maybe that's why we don't have a problem, because we've regulated them well.
Sometimes it would be nice if we would look at ordinances which we don't need. I know when I first came into office, I made it a point to go review the ordinances and say, what can we get rid of? And from time to time, you need a house cleaning. I know y'all tried to do one last year, and we're not totally successful with the house cleaning, but from an ordinance standpoint, it might make sense to do a little house cleaning and throw out some ordinances rather than politicians. Councilmember, further discussion. Councilmember Price, what do you want to do with this?
I would like to move to table this to an indeterminate time, at which time perhaps somebody will have a complaint.
And I second that motion.
We have a motion to table this by Councilmember Price, a second by Councilmember Wynn. Does anyone in the audience wish to speak up for the mice or comment on this ordinance?
Mickey's here.
Seeing no hands up, any further discussion by council? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously.
Mayor, I would say I would think a whip and a chair would be sufficient.
A whip and a chair. That's for the mice.
Yes, I meant for the mice.
Not for the council members.
Are we ready for the next item?
Next item, please.
Consideration of precious metals and gems dealers license application. Alice Wakefield will present that.
Keith, the applicant has submitted a complete application for a precious metals and gems dealer's license on behalf of RB Gold Buyers LLC. The property is located at 710 Holcomb Bridge Road, Suite 210. This application is complete and has been reviewed and approved by Chief Ed Williams. This application was also presented at the Community Development Committee on June the 23rd. The recommendation of staff is approval.
Any questions from staff? Do we have a motion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move to approve the application for the metals and gems dealer's license.
Motion by Councilmember Price. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Wynn. Does anyone in the audience wish to say anything on this? Things are going pretty smooth. You all maybe should sit there. Do we any further discussion by council? Councilmember Orland.
I don't know. I think after sitting here all night listening to all these different issues, the two applicants should at least come up to the microphone and say something.
Thank you. My name is Harvey Rubin. I live at 1975 Nocturne Drive in Alpharetta. And as you know, we've applied for a license to open up a gold buying store. Looking forward to doing business in Roswell.
Welcome to Roswell.
Thank you for coming into Roswell.
Thank you.
Any further discussion before we take a vote? All in favor of the motion, raise your hands. Passes unanimously. I think Mr. DiPolito brought up a point if it'd be appropriate to review the necessity of bringing these to the council for approval. Councilmember DiPolito, I have served on this council now not as long as Councilman Orland's, but this is the... Well, I'm not sure I'll ever match your record. But this is the first occasion I have had to review one of these things, and I question the need for it to come to council and take up your time. So we'll be looking at that, and I appreciate your coming to Roswell. And I don't know whether you want competitors to come or not. We may be making it easier for competitors to come.
That's okay.
To the city, but it'll be easier
that's not
for
a
the
problem.
next business person down the road. If you want up a second location, perhaps it'll be much easier.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you for coming.
You're welcome.
I just don't recall them. You've been here longer than I have, so it must have been on the consent agenda because I just don't remember it. Please.
Next item on the agenda is approval of the Transportation Master Plan update. Mr. Eisenbrecht, we have seen your plan and have gone over it multiple times, so please be brief, although thorough. You have the mic.
Thank you, Councilman DiPolito. Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, I know it's been a long night. Just had a few remarks. As you know, that transportation can be a tough business. Occasionally we get an opportunity to come before you with a great story, and this is one of them. We took a difficult situation, which is the update of our original Transportation Master Plan, and with our own staff, made it better. We've given you the details all of the steps that we've taken along the way as we've done that, and tonight I just wanted to review those with you just very briefly. Ooh. This is the cover of our new Transportation Master Plan. As you can see, it was originally adopted in November of 2006, and now we're saying that we took the liberty of saying that it was going to be updated in July of 2010. Of course, that's at your pleasure, but we started this effort last summer. This has been done by your seasoned internal staff. They've walked almost every square inch of our 42 square miles, and they've learned a lot about the city. They've had 6 public meetings. We've done extensive data collection, coordinated with other city departments, and outreach to other surrounding governments. Just as a quick summary, what we did was we took the good parts of the previous master plan, as you can see in 2006. We did, again, more outreach, and then we did basically, we drilled down into this and really got some good data. We did a good needs assessment. We thought hard about the problems facing our city, and we came up with some really innovative, cost-effective, fundamentally sound engineering solutions, and that's really the basis of this plan. I'm very proud of it, and I'd like to give a special shout-out to Chris Chauvin, your transportation planning manager, who has really done yeoman's work producing a solid document, and one that is not just written by a consultant. Of course, consultants have great value in our community and in our society, but in this case, you've got people that basically live this stuff, eat it, and breathe it every day, and they are here to now execute it and see some of these great projects come to fruition. Just as a schedule, we have, again, showed you this numerous times throughout the year, going through the various milestones. We've come to the end of the line, and also we've superimposed this on this bottom graphic as the North Fulton Comprehensive Transportation Plan. So not only have we done a great job of pulling this together in our own right, but it overlaps really well on what we're doing as a North Fulton community to integrate our projects with the other municipalities here in North Fulton. So I respectfully request that we approve the Transportation Master Plan and immediately begin to execute it.
Council, any questions, please? Do we have a motion? Councilman Owens has a question.
I have one question, Steve.
Yes, sir.
Is your degree and background actually in engineering, or is it in marketing and sales?
It is in engineering, sir.
Oh, darn.
Mr. Asenbrack, I think you and your team have done a fabulous job once again.
Thank you.
Your department is second to none, so I really appreciate all you do for the city. And the enthusiasm you all have, it trickles down, certainly from you, and your whole staff is real excited about what you do for our city, and I think that's, my hat's off to you. I think that's real special and something that not every city has. So we really appreciate that and love the way you take ownership of it. It's not just a job for all of you. It's it's your city and you own it and you want to do your best for it. So we really recognize that and appreciate it.
Thank you.
And I move to approve.
Motion to approve by Councilmember DePolito. Second by Councilmember Donovan. Does anybody else have any questions or comments? Passes unanimously.
Thank you.
We have
Microphone. With the ARC, they're going to wrap it up in 5 minutes so we can all go home.